Madam, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much. And that's a very generous introduction. It's not something that I do. Most of my achievements are not something that I have done alone. It is thanks to a large team, enthusiastic team that's behind a lot of things that we achieve at the center. And that's true for all of education. And we are here today to look at something that is very relevant in times as we focus on more and more on outcomes, with privatization coming in increasingly into education. The corporate word, which seems corporate-like, is outcome. So what does outcome really mean is something that we could start off with. So I will share my screen, but I'm sure you also have already had a lot of discussions, and I thought this could be participatory, where we could have discussions on what we understand of curriculum, or what we understand in terms of an outcome-based education system. Where does that come from, etc. So I would like to get from you all an overview of what does curriculum mean to us as a group here. What would you say is a curriculum? How is that different from a syllabus? And why does the NEP so very often focus on these learning outcome curriculum framework reference that it does? It was in 2018 that it started with the first document that came about called the LOCF, Learning Outcome Curriculum Framework. But we have since then seen more and more of it. So what is curriculum? I will be taking you to various websites over the period, and basically just to get us all a sense. But it helps to just have a common definition that comes through. Any one of you is free to, I'm sure, unmute or chat, type in. We are here as people to interact with each other.
Ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay. Curricular and extracurricular activities. Thank you. Yes, go ahead. So, yeah.
Ma'am, curriculum means, the holistic experiences that we can provide to the students. The whole experiences in the education system.
The whole experience.
Whole experiences.
Okay. So these
that would comprise of both this curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular, that is pertaining to their academic matter as well as pertaining to their capabilities, competencies, and all abilities.
Right. So all their abilities, everything will come in extracurricular and curricular, is it? So how will
yes.
I form, what will a curriculum per se then have to deal with if all of these have to be covered?
Ma'am, actually, when we were planning our lessons and all, we were giving more emphasis.
Go ahead. Sahasras, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Shairaz, you're muted, eh? Okay. Shairaz, are you there?
Curricular, co-curricular. Okay, I'll just put the co-curricular since that is a popular, she may have dropped out. So,
Anusha, there are also on chart. If you
yes, I can see. So there is a lot in terms of co-curricular and curricular and overall development of the learner. Fair. So the curriculum is also about the activities and not just about the subject teaching. Thank you, Sarika. And then there is quite a bit in terms of how the curriculum is something that is particular to a school. I'm not sure that a curriculum is particular to a school, Anuradha, because we do have a national curriculum framework that comes in, or we have state curriculum frameworks that come in, or we have board level CBSE that comes in. So whether a curriculum is particular to a school itself could be questioned. But yes, there are schools that will design and develop their own curriculums, and then the syllabus and the school frames it from the syllabus that is prescribed. Actually, if you have to look at it from another view, it may be a larger aspect. So Bindya says roadmap that includes all the learning experience. That, wow, that's a lot. That includes all the learning experience that a learner gets. So I'm not sure again whether a singular curriculum can actually deal with that. We do have, for instance, varieties of curriculum. If you type something as simple as types of curriculum, you will come across explicit curriculum, hidden curriculum. There is a lot that comes through in terms of curriculum that sometimes is not even capable of being spoken about in school, and we may not have thought of it, but there is a learning experience that the student has outside of the school premises or the college premises. Sequences of planned learning experiences for different levels. Yes, true. It is a kind of planned learning experiences and cannot include all learning experiences, but it is planned learning experiences, sequenced with some thought, right? I mean, there is a purpose to those learning experiences that have been identified, and yes, that is there. The curriculum is a larger frame of objectives and experiences, as you have all identified, for a learner, but it also could be a set of traits, personality traits. It could be a set of abilities that a student must get, which are part of the framework where you're looking through and saying that in this kind of a setup, in this kind of an institution, in this kind of a state, country, whatever, you can level it up and down as you wish, but you want to imbibe, you want the students to imbibe certain qualities, and those qualities may not necessarily be only subject knowledge. And that also forms what curriculum really deals with. So if you go to the NEP to a large extent, they do talk about the fact that, and I've just opened up the NEP page, which is available online. So they open up to the fact of how education will largely have to be moving towards more experiential, discussion-based, flexible, enjoyment-oriented. It needs to be multidisciplinary, but then they go on to talk about the fact that the curriculum must include basic arts, crafts, humanities, games, sports, fitness, language, literature, culture, values, in addition to science and mathematics, to develop all aspects and capabilities of the learner. This is how the NEP says the curriculum must be like, right? And it says that education needs to make people and students wholly well-rounded, useful, and it must be fulfilling to the learner. Now, that's a huge ask of what a curriculum needs to do. And then they go on to talk about how education overall must also build character and make them be more ethical, rational, compassionate, caring, and prepare them for gainful, fulfilling in employment. It's very interesting how the words like fulfilling, words like engaging are repeated in the NEP document, because it says that the student, the learner, must experience fulfillment, and they must feel meaningful. They must find it meaningful. So even within just this paragraph, you find fulfillment used in different ways through the, twice already, but through the document, you hear this word fulfillment quite often again. And that's an important and interesting aspect that comes through. Now, why are we talking about this is because if I understand that curriculum is a large set of objectives that I have, and in which I have to imbue everything from sports to arts to, to science, to humanities, to everything of critical thinking, of enabling them to be ethical, rational, and be fulfilled as people, and also then employable, is an interesting aspect of what the curricular goals largely the NEP defines itself to be. And so, yes, what you said of curricular objectives, as in syllabus, learning objectives that we would have of them, learning mathematics, science, English, Hindi, geography, science, computers, whatever it is, but also co-curricular and extracurricular activities. So yes, all of these would form and inform the learning experiences. Maybe not all the learning experiences, but definitely it should be something that we plan for what occurs within the school or the college that we are teaching in. So if that is the case, then how do we define outcome? Because the NEP then goes on to talk about the fact that there is a huge gap between the current state of learning outcomes and what is required. And these have to be bridged through major reform. And they constantly say, and they bring it up from ECCE to higher education. So what is an outcome really? How do we look at outcomes? And in today's context with NEP, how will we identify what outcomes are necessary or useful? Because we have to bring all of these outcomes back to this wonderful document called curriculum. So how do we define what is an outcome and what do we deal with it? So yes, again, once again, you're free to unmute, chat, type. Change in behavior, acquisition of knowledge. Okay. Yes, to an extent, change end result after we put in any input. Okay, all right. That's a very precise definition of what an outcome would be. Output in terms of personality, perhaps, yes. And it is an acquisition of knowledge and skills, perhaps. The way that and all of these are right answers, expected result of an action. These are right answers. The way NEP really kind of, and it's very interesting. It's if you just go to the document and if you ever do discourse analysis of the document and you type in something like how many times is outcomes being repeated in the document, you will find that the outcomes has been repeated in this document about 38, 39 times. And I don't have to go and read every one of them to know that they are there, but they are all about learning outcomes. NEP is really focused on this word outcome. In a 66-page document, you have words like outcomes quite often repeated in different ways, where they are constantly trying to make it easier for how to understand it as desired learning outcomes. And they constantly focus on how everyone has to come together to make this desired learning outcome possible. So knowledge, understanding, skills, attitudes that are a result of instruction or training. Now, this is an interesting element that you are talking about, Andrea, because they may not directly result from instruction or training. Always, they may be if we focus on facilitation, exposure, and they may come through certain elements which are not explicit, and there may be implied outcomes that come, implied processes, and that are not explicit training. It is implicit in its vision, and you do manage to discover that they deal with outcomes. So my question to you, and this is a question, if someone is playing games, video games, or even something as simple as hopscotch, you know, the game of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 6, and then 7, 8, some kind of a game. If someone is playing games, are there outcomes in the games? So Ruchi says there is an achievement of a goal. So by game, perhaps there is an achievement of a goal, or there is an end result that comes in, but can games have learning outcomes? Yes, okay, yes. And they may not be explicitly training us in that sense, but they give us certain incentives. It is a very interesting phenomenon. You can go on various TED Talks and other kinds of forums and see. It is a very interesting phenomena of how we teach and inculcate in students an ability to persevere. What someone calls, and this has got nothing to do with outcome really. I was just pushing this in as a point, but say if you've heard of Carol Dweck, she talks of this thing that's called the growth mindset. And and in terms of the growth mindset, a very simple element that comes in is there are varied other talks. I'm not just going to only refer to Carol Dweck, but Carol Dweck is known very well for this kind of a system. There are many students who, when they come across a problem, continue to persevere with it. For instance, if there is a very difficult math problem, students of standard 5th, 6th, 7th, if they've been tested, very good students who are supposedly very good at math, have a mathematical ability, are not just rote learners, but have a mathematical ability. So they found, and they did the study where they looked at these students who were girls by far till grade 5 or 6 outperform boys in all subjects. And this was done in America, but you can see this everywhere and anywhere also. And what they found in the study was that girls who did very well in math problems, when they came across something that was more challenging, when they had to persevere with it and they had to risk failure, they backed down. They did not stick to the problem, and they asked for, they gave up, not asked, but they gave up very easily. And it was an interesting find that why are girls who are generally good at math giving up on a problem? So they did this with science and they did this with others, and they found that seems to be the tendency. If the girls are good academics, they seem to give it up sooner than later. Whereas boys who are reasonably good at academics and they are come across with a challenge, they are very eager to persevere with the problem and they continue trying to work out on the problem. So that was left at some point, but then there was an organizational behavior study that got done where an organization found that they had listed posts, this is again computers, in the field of computers. So a company had listed its posts, and then they did an analysis. And they found that men applied to the jobs where they ticked only 60% of the qualifications. So if you had only about 60% of everything that was required, I've said minimum 5 years experience. Men who had even 3 years of experience would go and apply for that post. And so on. And, you know, all languages, there were some 5 languages you had to know, and they knew only 3, but they would still apply for the post. So even if they ticked off only 60% of the qualification, they were applying. Women, on the other hand, had only applied if they had fulfilled 100% of the qualifications. Now, why am I putting this under outcome as a study, as a question? Is that we find that in education, there is this tendency, because of society around us, to teach a certain segment of children to be perfect. They are taught perfection not through explicit training or instruction, but through implied expectations. So curriculum is also a set of expectations that I lay out for my students to achieve. I am laying a particular bar for them to achieve. That bar may be perfection, but that perfection bar may prohibit them from being experimental. Then it may prohibit them from being brave. And there are many talks on this about, you know, teach your girls to be brave and not perfect and so on. But it is also in a country like India, noticed of students who are from underprivileged backgrounds, who want to achieve and who want to always remain perfect. They will try, but they're also more likely to give up if they feel they've not been able to achieve the cause and they're not challenged by the problem. They come to you with asking for help, saying there's something wrong with me, and not that there is something wrong with the problem. And there is a shift and difference in language and use and things. So to go back to NEP, if I had to go back there, the child then ceases to feel fulfilled because the curriculum does not make the student feel fulfilled. The curriculum does not make the student feel engaged enough, but more importantly, makes the student feel like a failure. So these are aspects of what the NEP is hinting at. I'm not saying it is the only way to do it, but these are aspects that we have to keep in mind when we are designing curriculum and framework and outcomes and so on. So yes, these are questions that you could come up with as what is an outcome. An outcome is what you guys have written out here, that it could be the knowledge, understanding, skills, attitudes, which may be because of explicit training or instruction or implicit, implied expectations, environment set around them. So what do I mean when I say that instruction may not always be the way that you could have a desired outcome? If you have been through the Bombay Metro, and you've been in the Bombay trains, you will know that outcomes sometimes emerge not because of explicit instructions or explicit training, right? If someone goes and travels by the airplane and someone is traveling on buses and trains, we know that the same person who may be spitting on outside of the train or inside the train at times does not do that in the aircraft, because there is an environment around you that kind of makes you have to live up to a certain bar of behavior and practice. So if there is discipline in the school, if there is discipline and a certain kind of culture attitudes, behaviors modeled for the students, there may not be explicit training or instruction, but there is a certain level of outcomes that the student automatically imbibes and is able to demonstrate through attitude, behavior, knowledge, understanding, etc. And that could emerge as output in terms of personality, but also output in terms of knowledge content that comes in. So any input, as Bindya was pointing out, could be leading towards an outcome, but we have to design the input to be leading towards the outcome if we want to measure it. Otherwise, we can't measure it. So outcome-based education really comes from this entire phase where they focused on that you need to have one student-centric teaching, but you also need to plan all of these stated objectives and outcomes where we are constantly measuring students' performances at different levels and then enabling them to move up the grade towards a certain kind of desired goal that we would have. How do we manage this? What do we do about it? Is we have to outline for ourselves program outcomes. We may want to outline for ourselves program education outcomes, and then may want to outline course outcomes. So if you are doing higher education, then this makes sense to use program education and course. If it is in school education, then you could look at it in terms of grade level outcomes, right? And this would be grade level education outcomes. And then this would be the subject outcomes. So how are these different? How do you think these three might make any difference? I'm leaving again the floor open to you. As you can see, I'm typing in very little. So I'll stop sharing and ask you, how do you think these are different?
Ma'am, can we say there exists a hierarchy of sorts? Program outcome is for the whole, supposing B.Ed. Then program outcome could be for B.Ed. A course outcome could be for a particular course paper. And
yes, it is. But what is the difference between program outcome and program education outcome?
Program outcome is generally the thing which we are looking forward in the future, that after teaching this course, we'll get this results or this change in behavior in students. I hope I'm right.
It's up to us to, look at and define. Yes, you're in the right direction, definitely. Because there is this emphasis that now increasingly in OBE, if we look at outcome-based education, we come across that program outcomes, yes, Dr. Shaharas, is much more broader. What that means is what behavior, as you were rightly saying, Bindya and others, that you need to be able to have something, for instance, bravery, for instance, their ability to problem solve, which may actually transcend course outcomes or subject outcomes, which may also not be educational in that sense, in the sense of what education means is I have a subject level mastery, I know conceptual knowledge, I know the pedagogic insights, etc. I may develop, there may be program objectives which are focusing on empathy. Now, a question is, does your course curriculum require you, does your program, if you're designing a program, require you to have high level of empathy? And that's a question that comes in for instance, if I'm designing a course on data analytics, do I necessarily at the program level think that my students at the end of this program that they do on MSc data analytics, for instance, that they should develop a high competence in empathy? Would it be necessary? If someone will say that empathy should be for everyone, but does the program require them to be empathetic? Is that the priority, value, outcome that I will think of?
And priority wise, if we see, then it may not be a priority for the program, because
It
it
is,
would
yeah.
require them to be more objective rather than bringing their emotions.
So they may require to have a high level as a program level to focus on rational thinking, to focus on their ability to deal with, they may require ethical, but they may not require it to be very empathetic or high on caring in that sense. On the other hand, if I have something like nursing, I will want them to be ethical, rational, compassionate, caring, everything, right? Because they have to be not just compassionate and caring, they also need to be ethical and rational. So it really depends on what I as a program think that my students who come from there should have as competencies built in, which may go beyond the levels of the subject mastery that they may have. It is not, there are many people who do field assignments, but a reporter who does field assignment, who goes onto the field and, looks at a war zone and covers the war zone, has a different level of empathy, rationality, ethics, which are different sets of the same kind of piece and different levels that they are graded at, compared to a social worker who may also go into a conflict zone and try and help people in conflict regions. They also need to have skills of bravery, etc., but their competencies are different, and this is beyond educative goals of what we call subject mastery knowledge. And this comes in, how will we measure this? Yes, different soft skills are set in connection, and how do we measure it? That's a good question to ask, Seema. The point is, if I would want to set that, does my program goal, and if you go in, there are many OBE, now higher education institutions are going in for a lot of other kinds of accreditations. And their OBE is becoming more and more prominent. And at that point, there is a lot that comes in terms of what the learning-based outcomes and approaches can be. So this is the 2018 document that had been released by the UGC on how undergraduate programs could focus on, look at what is the qualification descriptors, what are the program outcomes, what are the course learning outcomes, and how are they able to be demonstrated, but also then enable the learners, and if you notice here, enable the learners, the parents, employers to understand what is the not only level of learning outcome, but the nature of learning outcome. And this is a very important word, because when you talk about the difference between nature and level is how empathetic am I, but also the nature of empathy. It will be different. The nature of empathy of a reporter in a war zone is to be different from that of a social worker in a war zone, who will be different from the kind of empathy that a doctor or a nurse may exhibit in a war zone. My decision making as a volunteer will be very different because of empathy levels and the nature of empathy being very different from that of a doctor. Right? There is a Hippocratic oath they have taken and all. So it is important that they have kind of outlined and understood those differences if we go into the nitty-gritty of what the words themselves mean. and how they can be at the completion of a study be able to look at it. So yes, a question to go back from here, I just opened this to say that there is this problem. How do we then define it, and how do we then bring in these kinds of references to say that I can measure this? So one, I have to be able to identify. I have to be able to identify if I'm preparing my students to be teachers of lower grades or higher grades or in school education, what is the set of learnings that I require? I may require them to be sociologically sensitive. I may require them to be good communicators. I may require them to be empathetic. I may require them to be rational. I may require them. So how do I prioritize? How do I say that these are the 2, 3, 4, 5, but not too many, right? 5, 6 skills over a period of 2, 3 years that my students are with me, or over the period of 10 years that my students are with me, I will be able to, I mean, as an institution, we will be able to build this in them. It could be discipline. It could be the fact that there is the sense of responsibility, a sense of constant, what you call, ownership, and a sense of wanting to do, a sense of service that they will build in their nation. So how do I build that into my program? It could be, yes, Anuradha, how does one categorize skills and outcomes? Skills are my ability, isn't it, to do something? But what is an outcome really that you are looking at is it goes beyond just the skill nature. Skill is, it's a good question. Even let's problematize this even further, and let me ask you another word, bring in another word here called competency, and then bring that and push that with outcome, right? So skill is my ability to take a pencil and write with it. We are taught this in school. We are taught how to take a pencil, how to hold it, how to write with it. And then we are, over a period of time, we build a competency in ourselves to be able to take that ability to write with a pencil, to be able to write with a sketch pen, to be able to write with a pen, with a ballpoint pen, with an ink pen, with something else, even write in the air, and write with our fingers on others' backs and hands and into the finger and be able to read. The ability to take a particular thing, a particular method, a particular instrument that you have been trained in, and to be able to build and transcend from it a list of, to adapt it to other contexts would be competency, right? So that's a difference and distinction between a skill and competency. Outcome is the result, or as someone has put in, as consequence. Outcome is a consequence or a very desired result that we have, intended to be able to see as a result of certain planned activities. So it could be that it is a planned activity or a planned, working station. It could be that I want an outcome, right? I want an outcome of everyone keeping quiet. How do I build this outcome of everyone keeping quiet? I can, of course, come into class and shout at everyone, saying, keep quiet, keep quiet. So I could state that. I could state, I could bring you into a room which has got soundproofing. Have you noticed how when we walk into a room with carpet, with cushions, automatically, because they also absorb a lot of the sound, but we also reduce our own sound levels. So when we take people into quieter places and terrains, everyone actually calms down and becomes quiet. Hotels know to do this very well. I want an outcome of you wanting to eat more, but I don't need to constantly sell it to you. So how do I do it? I use what McDonald's does. Use red color, use orange color, build an appetite, make it energetic looking, and you will end up eating more. I can build outcomes of desired results through either the set of instructions that are explicit and training mechanisms, or by creating an environment that sets a process in place that will lead me to a particular outcome. So that is where there is things. Thanks, Rinka. No, yeah, I am. So these are elements that come through in terms of skill, competency, and outcome. How do we distinguish is a skill can be an outcome, but an outcome can be a larger set of other goals as well. I may want someone to be skilled to be able to write holding a pencil. I may want someone to have the outcome of my subject could be that they should be able to speak in English very well. The outcome of my course could be that I want them to be able to grasp the understanding of what set theory is and to be able to apply it in different contexts, which are relevant and authentic and real world applications. I may want that to be their ability, and that is an outcome. So I could actually define outcomes in multiple ways, whereas skill is a little bit more limiting in that sense. So this happens to be the focus in terms of an outcome. And that is where outcomes can be of different range. And then NEP actually states outcomes to also be holistic. So they are beyond the course level outcomes, right? And I'll go back to the LOCF document also, because this was in 2018, but it is still something that, and they're working on it to bring it to other standards that they will come up with. But the learning outcomes primarily focused on trying to see what will be these academic standards and constantly reviewing them. So whether we will enable these students to have a successful program study, what will it require? So whether a research skill is something that I want as my program outcome is a question. Should it be at the undergraduate degree or at the postgraduate degree is a question. Do I need them to have it at a research, to understand research even in their first year? Is a question. Do I need the research skills to be brought into 6th standard? That is also a question. And today's NEP, if you go down to the CBSE curriculum, you see that one of the skill sets that they have set for science and maths especially is research skill. Explicitly laid out that there must be research skill. And so they are asking questions which are kind of focused on how, if you had to find out, or if you had to verify some information, how would you go about the verification processes? So these are kinds of elements that they are trying to focus on. And this could be beyond the program outcome, grade levels, things. I also would want, and at any point in time, we will also need to distinguish what is the program education outcomes, which are more curricular in nature. So this is more in holistic in nature, program outcomes or grade level outcomes. These will be more curricular in nature, where there is a focus on the kind of competency, mastery expected of subject knowledge of certain kinds of subjects that you should know, and to be able to do well in the stream that we are looking at. So if I want an 8th standard student, I need to know what should an 8th standard student need to learn. So does an 8th standard student, for instance, in the program education context, need to learn carpentry? or need to learn about, to be an electrician? Does the person need to know about tiling? How to lay the tiles in a house? Would these be program education goals that we want at 8th standard level? That's a question that would come about. In America, for instance, some of this as home science becomes a skill that they must know. Self-sufficiency in knowing basic wiring, basic carpentry, basic of cooking, for instance, should be taught in school, is a kind of expectation that comes in some of the syllabuses that they have, curricular objectives that they have. And then they design a syllabus for it, deciding what will be cooked and what will be taught, etc. We may not want to push in all of this in the program education, right? I mean, we may think more of arts in terms of, oh, you must know at least one music. There must be at least three of your schooling years must have had music in it. Or there must be NSS if you're in school and college. You must have done NSS. So these kinds of education outcomes may also design what goes into your curriculum. And then finally, what does the course or the subject really deal with as outcomes? Now, the question that Seema had asked, and I will go back to that question, is how do we measure these when it comes to soft outcomes? Soft skills, as in that's what you were saying, as outcomes. These are questions that each of us has to be able to answer to a certain extent as we are going forward. But before I get into how do we measure these, my question would be, how do we measure even something that is knowledge? Knowledge itself is a very subjective terrain. How do we measure what is mastery in knowledge? We can measure certain number of concepts that have been learned by the student. So how do I measure knowledge? Is I ask whether the student is able to first identify a concept. Maybe that's how I'm doing it. Then I ask whether the student is able to define the concept. I wonder whether the student is able to use the concept in any form whatsoever as introduced, use the concept, reproduce the concept. As introduced. I may then wonder whether the student can apply the concept. I may also then wonder whether the student can analyze the concept for its usefulness, for its ease, for whatever other purposes. I could see whether the student is able to analyze the concept and then evaluate, and then finally is able to creatively bring in certain other elements. Fair. We can measure these even when we are talking about outcomes. We do measure whether there is all of these phases that they are doing. But is this the only way? Isn't this too very particular? How does it enable me to understand that the student knows anything? Now, if we take the same concept, say, does a student understand photosynthesis? How will I know whether the student understands photosynthesis? Can they draw? Can they, tell me what are these, what is the process of photosynthesis? Can they identify what is a chlorophyll? Can they identify, what is the use of sunlight? Can they define the process? Can they look at it? Can they reproduce the entire sequence? Can they apply? Can they tell me what is wrong? What went wrong if I something sequence it out of order? Can they identify it? So these are ways that I will try and test them on photosynthesis as whether they have learned my subject knowledge or not. But how if I talk about communication? I want to measure effectiveness of communication. Skills as my outcome. Is it that I should be able to measure the communication skills? Can I just measure communication skills? How can I just measure communication skills?
Have some parameters for communication skills.
Like what? Through performance testing, yes, but it's very difficult when we say communication skills.
By talking, walking, confidence, all that things.
True.
Delivering any content, involvement of other peoples when someone is communicating.
Yes, but you realize all these words that you're using, if I have to give my students as advice, they will be, this is what happens generally in a language classroom. I'm a language teacher. Students are told, they write an essay or they perform something, and then you give them marks. And then they say, so how can I improve? And then you tell them, you need to have, and I'm going to use this, you need to use more non-verbal cues. They're looking at you, saying, what does that mean? There's some other student whom you have also said, I think you need to use your hands less. You know, you used your hands all the time while you were talking. It was very distracting. So student B is told, you use your hands a lot. Student A is told, you did not use your hands at all. It was very monotonous, so therefore not. So if we don't define for them what is communication skills parameters, like we did, and it was very easy for us to do with photosynthesis, if we don't do this with, soft skills like communication, we are not able to build a bridge of levels of content. So what the FLN did, for instance, with the Nipun Bharat Abhiyan mission, is that they have decided that number of words that a student reads is going to be the way that they are going to be good readers. So you have to read in third standard 60 words a minute of unfamiliar, 60 words in a minute to be able to be a fluent reader in the third grade. I would really like even my graduate students to be able to read at that level. Some of them are so poor. And they have said that you can read, and this is only about reading and being able to have comprehension. However, I may in communication want them to focus on intonation. We very often focus on pronunciation or grammar, but it could be intonation. It could be something where I say that the rhythm in your speech needs to go up and down, because then that is when it is interesting. It is interesting when you stress on a word. It is interesting when you pause. It is interesting when you elongate the word and tell it like a story and dramatize it and smile with your face and frown with your face and have expressions on your face that match to what you are saying. It will add to effect. If I don't give these kinds of explicit instructions, the student is never able to know where they should and how they should improve. Musicians are quite good at giving all these instructions, but as language teachers, we very often fail. So then this, Seema, to go back to answer your question, how do we measure soft skills, comes in as where we are asking. And now with the Tamil Nadu government, we were doing this mapping of learning curriculum, focusing on some of these activities. And this was a suggestion in a workshop where we were saying, don't just say they read a paragraph, but what does that reading imply? What is it that they are supposed to be able to do? Because in 6th standard also they're reading a paragraph, in 7th also they are reading, in 8th also they are reading, in 9th also they are reading. Do I not want them to progress? So how do I ensure that there is progression? That kind of specificity, if we are able to bring in, is how we can actually bring in measurement. It will also be very useful for the students because we are building rubrics actually. So if we, instead of using it as measurement, if we can just relabel this word and call it rubrics or scaffolds, where they are stepping ladders for the student to climb up and say, how will I do it? So what does that mean? It means that have we all drawn, I mean, we've all been through school and we all had to write, we all had to draw this rainy day. If you were in Bombay, you had to draw a rainy day. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, I think everyone had to draw. The first drawing was a rainy day. And we decided over a period of time, and the drawing teacher has it very well done, that the way you draw rain is also a progression. You may draw rain with pencil, you may draw rain with sketch pen, you may learn to draw rains where the droplets sometimes are big, sometimes small. We learn to draw rain with puddles where there's sometimes a splash. We learned how to bring about those layers of nuancing that came through as we did the same activity again and again. So if we are able to build those kinds of gaps in communication skills, those kinds of results in communication skills, or any soft skill, it will help. So when we say teamwork, for instance, let's take up something as simple as teamwork. How do I measure teamwork? You tell me. We all have got group work, teamwork as part of our, whichever subject we teach. We want them to learn how to do teamwork. So how do we work on teamwork? How do we teach it? How do we focus on this? How do we make this an outcome? Observation. Okay. Who observes? Do they observe? Do I observe? Peer and teacher. Distribution of works as per skills. Okay, so distribution of work. It may be as per skills or ability and things. Observation may be done by peer and teacher, but it could also be done by self. There could be self-documentation of seeing what did I do. So we have these activities where you make them sit down and do daily journaling of trying to see how many times you worked with a team member. But distribution of work, coordination, all right? Now, this is a question that has come about very often where we talk about certain things that, there is democratic part, democracy, democratic consensus as a decision-taking effort. So let's take up something that we talk about as decision-taking, right? This is a key skill of teamwork. So I need consensus. There is also something that we call participatory. There is consensus building, there is democracy, and there is participatory. What do you think? Are these different or are they all the same? These are very interesting aspects of teamwork that really over a period of time come up. Someone was trying to say something. all are different but going for the same goal? Actually, they don't, because in democracy, what happens is, if you really want to do, the majority wins. Democracy is about majority is winning. Whoever, whichever decision the maximum people voted for wins. Consensus, even if one person vetoes, then it is done. It is done. You cannot have the decision going forward. Everyone has to agree. So that is what consensus is, that everyone has to agree. And then there is participatory, where one person takes ownership but elicits opinions of everyone. But not every opinion may be considered. They may not always be given the equal weight, but how you make people feel heard. Now, the point, and very often in teamwork, one of the questions that we go back to is we ask them in decision taking, we tell them, can you tell us how you took decisions and who felt neglected, who felt ostracized, who felt ignored, who felt that the boring idea won? Because in consensus, risk-taking is zero, because everyone has to agree on an idea. Then risk-taking is zero, right? You will never, ever experiment, because everyone has to get on board, and people are more frightened of change. So the boring ideas win. Is it a good strategy for what you did? Did you really require to take everyone's consensus? If one had, had a different opinion, could you have convinced them differently? Democracy is where the majority wins. How many people you've got, were able to influence and all of it. It's not always a very good decision-making process, because again, it may be on, where people say partiality and, there was team wins and all of it. And participatory, where one person is taking the leadership position and they are then asking everyone and then saying, I am agreeing with this because if someone else has a really other point of view. So how did you go about taking decisions? And we kind of get them to articulate all of these. Now, can you do this all the time? No. If every class of mine I was spending on sitting and figuring out every teamwork activity, it is of no use. But if I'm building it over grades and I'm building it through my course, I may require that there are certain courses that will require you to always be in a consensus taking state. Can you tell me any reason and any context in which consensus is the best decision to take? I mean, that's the best decision taking platform. You must take consensus. It could be as simple as, going out with your friends for a film, but do you think you really need consensus to go on a film with the things? Anything that you feel where consensus might be needed?
Anusha,
Hmm?
I was thinking it's closing.
No, I was actually waiting for someone to
Yes,
answer.
yes.
Yeah, everyone has to agree on the same portion for a test. Ah, true, maybe. They have to. It could.
Ma'am,
It may not be necessary that everyone consensus. It's on a consensus then. Yes, you were saying something.
ma'am, maybe in a group project where everybody's marks are involved, whatever the final product has to be submitted to the teacher, everybody has to be in consensus.
Yeah, if there is a very large stake, that's what you said. It's a high stake decision, right? Where if we submitted the project to the teacher and then the teacher asks, so you're all happy, and there's this one student who at the end of the day says, no, I was not consulted, and then your entire group work went for a failure, then yes, consensus was required, and you did not. You obviously lost a very high stake element there. Yes, which is why in many board decisions where there is a change of management, etc., it is not just participatory. It is the stakeholders, the stockholders are definitely, they have to be consensus. There has to be consensus in buildings when it goes for redevelopment. Even if that one person says, no, I will not give my flat for redevelopment, consensus, right? So there are multiple stages where these are occurring and getting them to understand. Now, the reason I went into this part of these kinds of rubrics is that the NEP very easily and clearly tells us that we must focus on learning-based outcomes. We must look at learning outcomes and focus on greater empathy and align them with capabilities, etc. So one element that they are looking at, and I'm purposely going through each of these aspects and tools, they actually say that all our learning and assessment needs to be aligned with the kind of learning outcome we have. And these must not only be about capability outcomes, but also about capabilities and disposition that is specified for each subject of a given class. And the class can be at every level, but the disposition, and you're looking at this word called disposition and saying that means that there is an orientation that the person has to have for that subject that I'm expected to be also able to test, which is why I asked you in data analytics, do they really require high levels of empathy? And it may not be the case. So I then need them to be extremely rational, be able to deal with numbers, be able to sit with a computer and not feel traumatized that they are not, conversing. And those are kinds of things that you are supposed to be able to assess. That's one of the elements that the NEP talks about. The NEP talks about also other statements where they say that it's the achievement of basic learning outcomes along with higher order skills and application of concepts beyond the brief of what rote learning can do. And they're constantly focusing on student outcomes being focused upon, and there being performance investment, etc. So there is a lot that the NEP focuses on, where they have these kinds of focus, where they focus on competency-based learning, pedagogy, arts integration. But there's words like disposition, competency are very interesting as to how the NEP has outlined it. And it is now left to us to see how we can implement it and actualize it through an outcome-based education curriculum that we may want to deal with. So how can I deal with this learning-based curriculum? For instance, the one element that they have said, this is what they have said, right? They have said that what is important is counselors or well-trained social workers who can connect with students and their parents and the community actually work well to improve attendance and learning outcomes. And that is how they can work. So there is an environment that I have created that will actually help my learning outcome in terms of a subject learning outcome. So there could be something else that is for fostering my learning outcome. For instance, midday meal scheme is one of those elements that are there, right? So you would want to try and see how these kinds of areas that they are focusing on as constant accreditation that's sitting through. What and how do I do this such a way that my curricular goals, my curricular framework is being focused upon, is the kinds of questions that we would have. There could be NAS, state achievement assessment. All of these are very focused on the school levels, but also how we can look at these elements of outcomes, etc. But they have also stated that there needs to be more of cognitive skills that needs to be settled. There needs to be the fact that we need to develop the learning outcomes such that the students are in this step-by-step rubric that is being placed. And that is something that is quite an interesting element for us to work with. Like, how do I make sure that there are scaffolds to this learning such that I will place level 1 and then I have level 2. I will then be able to let my students step up to level 2. How do I make this level 2 work in such a way that my student is able to, work with or achieve these targets without having to jump too high, be made to feel a failure, and how am I making that progress coming? So when we come back to these soft skills and outcomes, there are these elements of empathy that comes in. So can we talk about the fact that if I had to build something which is an outcome of my education as empathy, I take this as my program goal. I have 4 years. I'll give you that there will be 4 years in which I will build empathy in a student. We can take the student to be of any age, but there will be 4 years in which we build empathy for the student across 4 years. How will I ensure that there are levels in my curriculum that will enable the scaffolding? It can be anything. I just thought of empathy right now. Any one of you can give me any soft skill outcome that you think is a good programmatic fit that generally we don't, outline and do much about. Only thing is that we have 4 years to build this. It is not going to be a 1-year goal. Respect, okay.
Leadership quality, ma'am, maybe.
Leadership itself is not one quality, isn't it? Leadership is a subset of multiple things. One is decision-taking ability. Another is respect. Third is, you may want to define what is leadership a little
So,
bit
we
more.
can then put decision making.
Decision making, because I just finished this part out here and said, because just even these, for instance, become a kind of process. When you're designing syllabi and all of it, you can actually tell them in one semester, you have to be democratic, that the majority wins. Another year, we can tell them that, you need to take consensus, even if one student disagrees, or for a particular subject, even if one student disagrees, it is gone. So yes, yeah, sure, ability to cooperate, to adjust. Cooperation is different, adjustment is different. But yes, definitely. I've put in courtesy, humbleness, okay. Okay, let's take up something which is dignity, academic resilience. Okay, Kalpana. Let's take up this thing that we have, which is, what did you say? Courtesy, moral values, okay. Moral values are again a composite of many, many things. So they need, many of what we have just written on the group chat is actually has a lot of moral values. So if you have, Seema says level 1 can be buddy, level 2 can be responsible for small classroom tasks, level 3 can be accountable for the grade, and level 4 can be an elderly person. As in, how can it be an elderly
Empathy.
person?
For empathy, the level is for empathy.
For empathy. But why would it be an elderly person? Even if I go back to empathy, we can take up 2-3 points and then build it. So what would be an elderly person? Buddy level is that I should be understanding my friend, is it?
Yeah, so I was just thinking like empathy. So just moving at higher levels. So at a buddy, we're talking about someone my age, and then after 4 years, the child should be able to empathize with issues of, let's say, the elderly or the physically challenged or something much larger.
Yeah. So true. If you're looking at SEL, they will actually start with one step lower. They will just start with self-awareness. We often forget this stage. And they'll just start with being able to recognize one's own feeling. And you have these exercises where, say if you're happy, say if you're sad, do a mood journal, something of that sort. Then buddy level, be aware of your friends, identify 2-3 friends, be able to identify their moods. How can you improve their mood? What will you do if your mother is angry with you? True, what you have put in, buddy or the immediate people around. And then you have a responsibility for the immediate community, is what you kind of have said, that, small classroom tasks and, or, grade level, but the immediate community around them is where they are looking at. And then they empathize with the larger concerns that come in. Now, this is my point, larger concerns of the world, or, something that is not in their immediate vicinity. Fair. Now, how can I measure this? How can I measure this?
Excuse me, ma'am. I just wanted to add one thing.
Yeah.
Empathy, if you think about it, and then you've started off with self-awareness, it reminds me a lot about Daniel Goleman's emotional
Sure.
intelligence.
Yes.
So in that case, if we are going to go from one aspect to the other after self-awareness, then understanding your emotions and trying to motivate yourself, controlling your emotions, and then going off to understanding others' emotions, and then trying to help them deal with their emotions so that they can also achieve something. I guess that would be measurable, because we all know that emotional intelligence is measurable. There are tests to measure it. But yes, I mean, through
But we may not
observation,
always be privy to emotional.
we may not use the actual tests, the standardized tests in the classroom, but maybe through observation or having a rubric or a rating scale. As we said in the previous one also, peer observation, self-observation, and even teacher's observation. And
Right.
then maybe having them do some activities and how they deal with one another, or whether they are able to put themselves in other shoes. I mean, that's the technical definition you could say about empathy.
So the reason why, and You're very right that Daniel Coleman's, can definitely be utilized in a sense. But the difference between what a psychologist does in terms of testing and giving personal advice to a particular client, they will call them clients, but to a particular person, is very different from the program educational goals that we would have, because we may not be always able to use it. A school may be able to bring in a counselor and enable them to work with a student, but overall, if I have to do it as a curricular objective, I need to ensure that everyone should be able to kind of move as a group, move in, say, from level in grade 2 to move to grade 3. I chose empathy because invariably we have seen stories over a period of time that help us to understand this. We have been told, we have been given stories which are very relatable to us. Level 1, where we are asked, how do you feel? At the end of the story, they'll be like, how do you feel? Did you feel sad when this person cried? So in a way, you're kind of telling them, so when this person cried, did you feel sad? Did you feel happy when she got punished? Those kinds of ways we are actually building through empathy. And we are saying that you feel sorry for the other person. Did you not feel so bad when she was punished? You have been punished, haven't you? How did you feel when you were punished? How do you think she felt when she was punished? These are the questions we ask students, and thereby connect their own immediate emotion to what that character in the story is experiencing, and then are building these threads of empathy with them. And there is an expected answer, that I felt bad when I was shouted, and when this girl is being shouted at, I feel bad for her also. It is expected. There'll be this one student in the class who will say, I didn't feel bad that she was shouted at because I'm glad someone else is getting shouted at. And those are fun things to also deal with and capable, but we are building them over a period of time. So similarly, we, as you were saying, we will give them tasks and activities, give them a sense of responsibility, make them feel about, getting water for everyone. Someone is put on a water bottle duty. Someone is working for the larger community, getting donations, funds, then telling them about events in far off places and asking them to do something about it, bringing news into the classroom. These are ways that we already have, that is already there in our syllabus, but we have not necessarily pushed it out as an explicit empathy outcome aspect of the program or the educational goal. So now we can do that, right? As I was saying all of this, you were like, हाँ, ये सब तो हुआ है, ये कर सकते हैं. Can I do this with my class, with anything else as well? So for instance, when you talked about this word respect, and this is a question that I have. So if I take and ask you, how can I build a quality called respect through an activity of citation? Ethical, Gautam, yes, thank you. How can I state that there is respect and ethics through this thing called citations? How can I make it a little bit more explicit? I'm just, because we will run out of time, I do want more questions to come in. Push it. Yes, acknowledging sources is citations, but how do can I tell students how that they're showing respect by acknowledging sources? Consider the values, morality. Yes. Anything else?
Ma'am, can we, for developing that, good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Hi.
Yeah. Ma'am, can we have that, more concrete model of this learning pillars? I mean, in the first level,
we are making them, aware about what is this respect. I mean, knowledge and all we can develop. Yes, I mean
Yes.
citation. You were talking about citation. So there are certain rules and regulations and all. So what are the protocols and all you have to follow and all. In the first level, can we have like that? And in the second level, we are making the students, some skills. We are developing some skills. How they are going to put up all those references and all. I mean, when we make our presentations also, how you are going to acknowledge the people. When you are putting up your PowerPoint presentations also, how you are going to acknowledge the various sources and all. So certain types of skills we can develop in the second level. And in the third level, we can ask our students to reflect on all those things and all. I mean, where they can, analyze their own belief, their own norms and all. And towards end, for bringing out the changes holistically, everyone have to work together. I mean, that is the, the higher level. Can we have this type of model?
Yes, you can, and that is the point. You build over a period of time, and the entire aspect of NEP is that it says that we are not to take the learning outcomes and put it only at the subject level. Now, the reason I'm not getting into the subject outcomes is because once we have done this, I'm sure you'll be able to take the subject outcomes very easily. Subject outcomes, we know what our course should do. We know also the skill sets, the learning that we have. But what NEP is asking for is a program at the level of at the school. How do I, when, or in the college, when a child enters, if they're spending 1, 2, 3 years with us, how will that scaffolding happen? Where can the child see their ladder of development? And that is the difference between using a psychologist tool, which is not to say that it shouldn't be used, it should be used. But the difference between that is because it's very individualized and customized in a very, very nuanced sense to a particular individual, versus an education goal where we are largely also trying to see whether as a group we can move children while also retaining their individual, levels. We can also move the group and through activities to be able to reach certain kinds of scaffold. So your learning pillar, as you were saying, is a fantastic way of organizing all of that. But just these kinds, for instance, when we talk about, and this is, someone says, how am I showcasing? Because our own students have to be sometimes taught about how it is explicit. If you now go to Harvard, to their website, you will find that they have taken their courses and they have divided their courses into micro competencies. And we generally talk about, and micro competencies are like these very small skills that you think is, kya hai? So for instance, citations and connecting it to respect is not something that most of us would have thought of as the first thing to come in. Most of us would be like, oh, there's plagiarism and ethics and those elements that come through. So if I'm taking citation and I tell a student, I mean, if we just have to do this as a simple, 4-minute conversation, that, you go into a place, you meet 5 people, you interact with them, and then you have to, report about it. And now they're all sitting there, they're all there, or, there are people, their people are there. And you forget their names. You forget to tell anything about them. You only talk about yourself and your ideas. Do you think it is respectful? Do you think it is, inclusive? Do you feel that there is something wrong? And 6th standard students got this and started citing, because in IB, you have to use, you have to say, where did you get this information from, etc. IGCSE, they started understanding the concept through these kinds of micro activities of drama events, which may actually take about 5 or 10 minutes. And you may wonder, why can't we do this in higher education as well? It's the same concept of how you are respecting a person to whom you went to, asked for information, and want to just acknowledge as a source. Having gone to them, having taken their time. having taken their ideas or efforts, whether it was useful or not, to just acknowledge and move on. That's one of the questions that they had. So if we are able to tell students about how their other outcomes that are built through regular activities that we have, through research methods, through these elements, what are these other competencies that they are building in? How, when I'm framing a questionnaire, by constantly respecting what the other person knows, their language level, and reframing my question to suit their language level, I am in a way being empathetic. I am in a way being inclusive. I am in a way being more respectful and honoring them in a way. If we are able to identify those elements and not at the same time make everything, all about holistic outcomes only and nothing about subject competency, it makes it enables us to build in certain other elements into our course, which sometimes I have had people who say, "मैं तो research methods सिखा रही हूँ." How will, in research methods, I'm only doing methods. I'm not teaching anything else. So how, when I'm teaching only methods, where is, all these concepts like empathy and respect coming in? And you're like, but do you ask them to build a questionnaire? Then in that questionnaire, are you thinking about the way that there must be order and structure? These are, they have to put themselves in others' shoes. They have to understand the worldview from which those people come from. They should be able to define. They should be able to take their consent. They should be able to understand that the other person has rights and responsibilities. How is it that methods does not have? It of course has so many concepts. So these are ways and means that are looking at it and saying, how will we do a subject learning outcome? You have subject mastery, those are there. Then we have these 2-3 outcomes that we define, and we have to define for ourselves which are these skills that definitely in our course at the end of this 3 months or 3 years or whatever time period our students are with us, what will they imbibe and go? And how will I be able to identify it? In which activities, in which experience of design will I be able to identify it? And it can be as simple as turn taking. So does the student always raise their hand? At the beginning, they've always raised their hand. Now, in the middle, and in fact, there are rubrics that you can actually give students, where do they look around as they raise their hand? Just that much. Do they look around to see if someone else also has a point as they raise their hand, or do they just raise their hand and only look at you to get attention? And that those kinds of elements of scaffolding or learning pillars, as you call them, can help through this. NEP says we don't have an answer currently for anything that I'm talking about. We don't have a detailed curricular framework for all these kinds of holistic learning outcomes as NEP has defined them. But it is up to us to be able to identify and bring in. Subject competency learning outcomes, I am sure we have a lot of curricular documents that already present all of this. So that is not a problem for us. These other aspects are. Now the question is, how does it also get written into the report card? Should it come in a report card? Should it come in their reflection grade? Only if we have certain 3 key 3 to 5 key program objectives, can we tell that at the end of this goal or this grade, yes, the student has learned these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, other holistic outcomes that have been part of what we were trying to imbue. It could be tolerance, empathy, anything that we want, which is outside of the subject and more in terms of where we want. It could be discipline, for instance, punctuality. It could be, as you were saying, one of you was saying, adjustment. For instance, in one of the schools, I know, one element it's a residential school, and one thing that they ask a child to maintain a yearly record is, did I start at the beginning, which are the vegetables I did not eat. And then at the end of the year, they have to say whether at least 1 to 2 vegetables from that list of I don't like, did they start eating. Not like, you don't have to like it. So they said that through this, we are asking them to understand how to be a little bit more expansive, adjusting and accommodating and experimental. But the key identity that they found here was they will learn how to adjust and accommodate um, um, as they do this activity. It's a simple activity, which is actually a canteen activity, but it takes them out of the realm in that sense. And these are kinds of outcomes and things that are outside of our subject competencies. And if you're building program goals, then these may be designing of experiences that we may want to keep in mind through our aspects. So it is 4:40. I will leave it open to questions in that sense, and then move ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Anusha. Participants, it's open for questions. I am sure Dr. Anusha has made us think and also has reached a level where we can decode such words, and there would be many questions which are coming in your mind. So if you have any questions, then you can please shoot.
Ma'am, can I?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, when we were asking our student teachers to write the instructional objectives, they were writing the instructional objectives with respect to the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. I mean, cognitive competencies, psychomotor competencies, and affective competencies. Now, when it is coming to this educational learning outcomes and all, so what is the change that we have to incorporate in that?
The affective and psychomotor competencies are still there, aren't they? But they are now more highlighted. Fortunately, we are not only looking at the cognitive levels. So that is a good point. The learning outcomes as they are defining, and I was actually trying to take us through those, is they will have to now start defining and refining, more than defining, even refining the levels at which these competencies will be built in. So if I'm saying about, for instance, if I talk about respect, the way we understand respect for young children will be, do you get up when an elder enters? Do you say hello? Do you respectfully bow or say namaste? Or do you say hello, good morning, something? Are you the first one to greet? These are the small aspects of respect which are visible behavior traits that we are teaching the young children. As they go older, the concept of respect becomes more nuanced. Here now, the respect would be in my recognizing that you have another point of view and being able to accept it. So that there now builds in nuances of tolerance, there are shades of acceptance, peace, perspective setting, etc. And my respect may not be always in verbal or physical behavior. It may not be seen through that, but it may be seen through a slight accommodation that I make for you. It may be in the fact that you come in and I will adjust the seat in such a way that you come to sit at the head of the table, that you get a space right at the head of the table. Those may be elements of respect that I show. Now, how do I, as students, how do we now start recognizing all of this and writing them out and making them rubrics in a way so that our students will also be able to find visibility there, is the challenge in front of all of us educators, not just our students, but all of us educators. Because this is really asking us to understand what is, finding all the nitty-gritties. So far, I always talk of this part as The way my mom taught me to, tried teaching me to cook was, if you asked her anything, she would say, put namak, put vegetables, then, saute it for some time and then you add salt to it. How much? To your taste. What does that even mean? I'm a kind of person who's looking at it and saying, but what is the taste? Your taste is different from mine. And is this tablespoon or teaspoon, or is this table salt and is this rock salt? I need everything like laid out. And so far, the way we have always looked at the effective skills has been that grandiose thing. Oh, you will know intuitively what is right. The problem seems to be that intuition worked for so long and it works till such a stage, but you can't get into a hotel and become a chef just doing intuitive working. So the chef may still tell that it is salt to taste, but the chef also has a level of knowing, of rationality, of a science guiding that intuition that is enabling. And that is why we need to have those refining rubrics and all of it. And that is where we are now in education, where we have to take these effective skills and then dichotomize them to death in a way, but hopefully keeping the spirit alive. So that would be my, how can you make them do this is getting them to even analyze textbooks and ask them, now identify, and this is perhaps easier in a language class, but not only in a language class. You can do this in a history, geography, science class, even in a mathematics class, where you ask students to identify empathy by just asking, or inclusion, by asking them, can you identify how many times a girl has been mentioned in the science textbook, or a boy has been mentioned, or what are the names that have been listed in the mathematical problems laid out, right? Just doing that kind of analysis will tell them, I need to be this much more aware of the kind of examples I'm giving in my mathematics classroom. Just and then they can level and layer it from there. I'm giving this as very simple things, but they can do this and they can build and analyze. This kind of textbook analysis has been done. There are many books on this from HPCSE and all. So it's not that we can't.
Thank you, ma'am.
I hope that answered your question.
Thank you,
It
ma'am.
was very long-winded.
Any other question or a comment or an observation or some sharing that you have with regards to constructing outcomes or your challenges that you have faced? Because I feel, Anusha, we have got a huge goal from the policy, and how then we are going about is also something that is being brought out. Anything that the participants would like to share or tell? We do have some time.
Yeah, I would like to ask one question to ma'am.
Sure.
Yeah, madam, I'm teaching English method for B.Ed students. So especially communication skills. I have a batch of students who are coming from rural places also, and good batch of urban. So when we have these students to develop this communication skills among them, which is very important. I do conduct activities, some other things for my students, but how do you measure the learning based outcome? You know, because is it a short term or is it a long term? Because communication skills is the need of the hour throughout. But if I want to find out how far they have developed their communication skills as a learning outcome of my topic, which I have taught them, or through the activities, how do I do that? Any other things which you would suggest, ma'am?
So there are three ways that a lot of current research in this suggests that there could be multiple ways. I'm giving three different, at least one or two different ways. One is you can't teach all communication skills in a single semester. So you may want to decide what you would want to focus on. It could be that I focus on in my semester, in this particular, for this batch, I want to focus on getting them to speak spontaneously. Even if they speak incorrectly, but they are able to speak at least for a minute and sustain a topic for a minute, even if it is in a spontaneous conversation. Maybe that is one of the skill, the outcome that I have identified. So then I design all my activities. Learning outcome based education is a backward planning activity. It's a backward design activity. So I will design all my activities that every class of mine will enable some kind of spontaneous conversation to emerge. And here I then organize also that everyone should get a chance, not in every class, but in a week or across 2 weeks, the class is covered. That would be my ability. That could be the goal. I could similarly identify that they should be comfortable in reading unfamiliar words. Maybe that is my other goal. So I know that I will ask them to guess. So every class or every second, third, fourth class of mine will have some guessing activities where they're given some gibberish or given some nonsense and they're asked to guess words, or they're made to give a text that they know is difficult and they are asked to predict, guess, estimate what the word is and move on, even if they find it very difficult to move on. And at the end of that exercise of these semester, I will then try and measure whether the student has been more fluent and persistent. This was a question that we had, where whether the student has been more persistent in trying to read when they are finding it difficult, when they are finding the words difficult. Are they volunteering to read more texts? These could be the kinds of outcomes that we can identify. Or have they expressed that they are a bit more comfortable? So it could be a self-reporting comfort level. That could be an outcome. So every outcome of yours does not have to be related to how well they perform in mastering that skill. It could be the confidence that they report, the comfort that they report, the engagement that they report. And these are words that we can take from the NEP, which talks of engaging, fulfilling, becoming more invested. These are words that we can think about and ask. The second part of very often that we ask students is we ask students to identify 5 things that they would like to improve in the next 3 to 4 months. What do they like to improve? And then we work with them in groups to try and see whether some of these could be broken down into smaller competencies that they are able to see and assess for themselves. A simple thing was where one of the students said that I would like to be able to speak fluently. Another student, many students actually come back and say, we want perfect pronunciation. Well, so then we work with them to remove their fallacy of whatever is perfect pronunciation. And I consider it job complete when they realize that's utopia and not even a desirable land to be. But they talk of fluency. So then we ask them how they will define fluency. What does that mean? Does it mean pausing or struggling for words, and what? And then we ask them to maintain a weekly register or a journal, and then they are improving. Now that journaling of rubrics where they just have to make a table of feeling how confident they are, Likert scale kind of table, of how confident they were feeling today of having understood 90% of the class, 80% of the class instruction, 60% of the class instruction, how confident they are in having understood it, their own reporting. And that kind of record becomes a journal where over the 3 months, they always do show an improvement in what they have achieved and identified. personally, I've done this where I have both asked them to maintain a journal, and in another case where we have taken it away. So they don't remember what they marked, and then studied that also. And they do improve. If for nothing else, and we keep going and telling them this, it's nothing else. The first time you heard us, you didn't understand our rhythm of speech, you didn't understand our pronunciation style. Over a period of time, you got comfortable with that, so you understood more. It is just a matter of feeling comfortable and confident with the person who's speaking, that you will, your understanding improves. And then the next time, the next semester, we try and repeat whether those exercises work. I'm giving these as small kinds of strategies, but there are multiples that you can, work around with these and identify. In terms of communication, to just go back to another skill, the one thing that you're talking about as communication, if you want them, please work with them to understand what is it that they require. So for instance, if you have a lot of teamwork activities, your program has a lot of teamwork activities, maybe not your course, but your program has a lot of teamwork activities. It could be that you need to only focus on giving them skill sets for presentation skills or skill sets for group discussions. And a very simple group discussion, confidence building group discussion activity is interruption. So that is, even if you just work on that one skill set, they learn how to do everything else around it. So you could think about those, breaking it into those micro activities and saying, you won't have time to do everything in a semester. No one has. So yeah. Yeah.
Ma'am, I would like to ask you one question.
Hmm.
See, I am teaching in Hindi pedagogy in the education department. And the same thing what you have explained right now. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. You are.
Yeah. So, ma'am, I'm just now started using rubrics for my students, and I have given them few activities. And as a, skill for languages, what we speak like writing, reading, speaking, and listening skills. So on that basis, I have framed my rubrics. But as you were giving some suggestions for the using rubrics, can you please suggest me a few things for making my rubrics convenient to use in my classroom?
There are many tools. There is something that's called Ruby Star and other kinds. The very fundamental of rubric is you keep them small. Don't elaborate too much. Very tempting to make a 7-8 item kind of a thing, and live with the fact that these are going to be scaffolding steps. So that's one. The second, which is easy, and if you're teaching students, then it is, I like reducing my work and outsourcing it to my students. We work with the students and ask them to come up with items, and they learn how to do this and take charge of their own learning. At the end of the day, we have to prepare them to take charge of their own learning. So asking them, creating 3 parameters of that you want for sure to teach and observe, and allowing for 2 parameters for them to fill might be one of the other ways to reduce the load on you and to enable them to start mapping and taking charge of these. It reduces the load on us a lot. So that can be one of the things. And it's across all fields, actually, not just for communication, even for science. For instance, there was this very interesting, we worked with this college and the how to take care of the lab, right? So at the end, there was this rubric that was set that the teacher only created, and talked about, made it as not a rubric, but a checklist, but also talked about taking the checklist and creating a set of qualities in the students. So lights switched off, all bottles, it was a chemistry lab, so all the bottles cleaned and put away, all the ingredients locked up and put away, the key given to the peon for safekeeping, shoes and the lab floor cleaned up. All kinds of these lists were there. And then they had for each of the students, how many of them took, these were the points, took initiative to clean up the task, to do the task, helped someone to do the task, reminded, not took initiative or did, but only reminded people to do the task. The fourth one was supervised to do the task. And the fifth was identified faults in the task. The sixth one that I found the most interesting was identified good points of whoever had done the task. And these were the 6 things that they had laid out. And they said, you know, how many did every student do it? And each of them had to just maintain that way and come up with this. But it was a beautiful chart of how you are being responsible, cooperative. And it was a very nice thing to see the nitpicker very subtly, you know, called out and obviously would not then be there, but also find someone to praise, because he said that ultimately humans love praise. So we need to build in students an ability to appreciate others and say it. So I wanted that other thing that came in. So we can build these kinds of small rubrics and aspects to do. There's a variety of ways that we can play with rubrics and checklists. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Nicely you have explained.
Some of these are not even what I have done. I was privileged to be in a training session where I was just giving idea and then he came up with this wonderful thing. So, yeah. Sorry.
I think, Madam Anusha, we have come to the end of the session, and it is also something where you have made us, as I again and again telling you, made us reflect and think and, you know, disturb us also to understand and decode what we are going to go into. It is better that we have, like you said, the first part is the awareness of these terms, the self-awareness. What is my understanding about this? And then I'll be able to implement the outcome. So I am extremely grateful that this is the right at the start. We are disturbing each one of us with thinking about what exactly it is. So as the FDP progresses till Tuesday, till Monday, we will be also getting a little more on the higher side of it. There were so many pertinent points that you have brought in over here with regards to the environment, with regards to how to frame the rubrics. All of these are somewhere or the other making us think that it is not as easy as output was. When we are talking a difference between an output and an outcome, output could be very easy that, okay, exam marks said, this is what I taught and this is what you gave me. We are now talking on a higher realm of outcome. So thank you so much at this time to come and in a way stimulate our thinking, in a way to provoke. And I like this disturbance that comes to us, and it should remain with us. And we should be able to now keep on clarifying our own doubts. I am extremely also appreciative that you did came despite your ill health, and thank you for being there for us. And we will see you soon. And madam, if there are any queries more, our participants can put on the LMS and we will direct it to you. And then maybe you can, or they can get in touch with you also.
Yes, sure. I have put in my email ID in the chat. That is definitely available. I will, not that I had a PPT really, but I have those links to those documents and the PPT. I can forward that to you.
Yes, ma'am. That would be very nice. So
this session is basically on the outcome-based curriculum design. I think we are moving ahead with more practical approach rather than only the theoretical approach. I think last day we have discussed about the general viewpoint about the outcome. before this particular session, we have discussed about the NEP, what NEP talks about outcome based. Now we are moving ahead with how we are able to develop the curriculum, how we are able to design the curriculum based on outcome based approach. Our resource person, Dr. Shyamal Kumar, is already with us. May I request Ms. Preeti Shivaramakrishnan to introduce our resource person. Over to Preeti.
Thank you, Dr. Bijoy.
Preeti, you are.
Thank you, Dr. Bijoy.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes.
I would like to begin with a quote saying that if you are not interested to learn, nobody can help you. But if you are interested to learn, sky is the limit. And this is what is true for our resource person, looking at Sir's profile, what he has shared. So Dr. Shyamal Kumar Das Mandal is basically an associate professor with Advanced Technology Development Center, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. Sir has done his PhD in engineering in the year March 2007 from Department Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, Jadavpur University. He has also completed his BE Hons in Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering from Jadavpur University in the year 1998. Sir has got 4 awards to his credit, awards and honors. He is the recipient of National Award of Young IT Professional in 2003, awarded by Computer Society of India. National Award of TI DSP Challenge in 1997, awarded by Texas Institute, India. He is also a fellow recipient of Fellow Japan Society for the Promotion of Science in the year 2010. He is also has been awarded with Faculty Excellence Awards, awarded by the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur in the year 2022. Apart from that, Sir has wide interest, I should say, being from the engineering field. His basic interest towards engineering, one is speech and signal processing, where he has developed a computer-assisted spoken language learning tools. He has also developed accent conversion, that is transforming the regional foreign accent of a source speaker to have a similar characteristics to that of another accent. He has also worked on signal processing and optical sensor development for medical and agricultural domain. Apart from that, Sir has undertaken wide projects, I should say. Okay, so there are about 7 projects, and most of the projects are sponsored by Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, and also by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. So Sir has undertaken 7 research sponsored projects. He has been invited as lecturers. So basically most of his research projects are on engineering, but also on pedagogical methods, on integrated development environment. There is wide interest of projects that Sir has taken. He has also been invited as lecturers on lecturer in outcome-based education and effective teaching at various universities, that is Hyderabad, at Aurangabad, at Bangalore. Okay. He has also been invited on outcome-based education at BITS Pilani. Apart from that, from what I have seen, average number of research papers that Sir has published is not less than 7 in a year, because I was just going through. So it's at least 7 research papers on an average that Sir has published each year from the year 2004 till date, is what I have understood. So Sir, with such wide experience and wide knowledge that you are there, we are privileged, our institute is privileged to have you as a resource person, and we will welcome you, Sir, with all the warmth for today's session.
Thank you for your kind introduction. So I want to only know about that background of the participants, because since my background in engineering, so during the lecture when I give the example, should I give that example from engineering background or general science background, or kinds of what kind of background participants are there? I assuming that all of you are teachers.
Yes, all our teachers, sir. The background is from, we are from a mixed group.
Okay.
So it is not only from the engineering or from the science. People are from management, arts. When there are teachers from the school level, they are also joined in this particular program.
Okay, thank you very much. So that what I said that the session will be much more interactive instead of giving that information to you. So anytime anybody when I ask questions or whatever the interaction when I impose, I'm expecting that participant will interact with me so that we can evolve in the thought process instead of just delivering information to you. So I'm sharing one presentation which is necessary for guiding us, not that same thing I will present, but some topics would be presented in front of us so that we are not too much diverted from the topic kind of things. Okay, so outcome-based curriculum design, today I am going to talk about it. How to design your outcome-based curriculum. First of all, I have to establish why I required it. Is it not that the education system which exists today in the country are sufficient? What is the problem there? And why should I require this outcome-based curriculum design? It is completely different from curriculum which we exist in for the several decades. So we have to think about it. So first of all, I established that point. Why I require this outcome-based curriculum. So since all of you are teachers, I'll share you some experience with you. That what is the challenge in teaching today? When you go to the classroom, what challenge you are facing? Most of the challenge is the student engagement. If you see in the most of the cases, students said that, okay, sir, before the exam, 7 days or 1 month study is sufficient for clear the exam. So why should I study throughout the year? Most of the cases. If you see for the general education, where the exam is semester basis. So before the semester, they thought, okay, 7 days, sufficient. So if it is that so, then for example of engineering education, we have a 8 semester in that, so 56 days is sufficient for giving an engineering degree. So why should spend 4 years time? So student engagement is one of the major issues today. So as a teacher, I have to know how to improve the student engagement. Most of the time, if you see that I have asked the many students, even in IIT also, because I have given variety of lecture in different institutes across the India, across the north to south. Almost all the engineering institutes I have given the lectures. And I asked the teachers that what is the percentage of attendance in the class? Most of people say, okay, sir, 60% to 70% is the average attendance. If I take attendance in the class, then maybe by rule forcing them to give some attendance. But why should I take the attendance? Attendance cannot be part of the education system. So now the question is why students are not engaged? That I have asked this question to the students. So why you are not interested to attend the class? And that answer is very, you can say that a very serious question they have said. They have said, sir, before I attend the class, I do not know what topic will teacher cover in the next lecture. And once I attend the class, I find out the teacher delivering a PPT, which is already available in the Google. So give me 2 reasons why should I attend the class. So the question is, as a teacher, should we deliver the information in the class? Is it required today? Earlier, yes, I have also studied that time that information is very much important because the resources are not available. Today, everybody's fingertip Google is available. Whatever the information you deliver, they know it prior to your delivery. So why should I deliver the information in the class? So that is not the issue. So the question is, then how do I improve the student engagement? The biggest issue today. Then question is how to equip students with skill attitude. Today, if I say student will able to explain Schrodinger equation or student will explain Newton's second law of motion, people say not required. Not required. Why should I study physics? To explain something, to describe something, not required. So what can I able to do using this after studying the physics? So if somebody asks me that, okay, I am studying in a history. Okay, maybe a BA in history, not the problem. But what should I do? Should I able to explain that barbarism? Not required. So what I have to do after the study, what skill I am developing, that is very much important. If you see that this slide, I have explained two kind of education system. One is this side of that slide, and another is the other side of the slide. If I ask you which side you are prefer, which side of the education system you prefer? Anybody? I think all answer will be this side. Okay, why? But if you today, even if today, if you are waiting for your kids outside the school before the exam, what you said? Oh, you have not able to answer this question. Yesterday night you have read it, and then also you have not forgot to answer this question. Is it education? Most of the cases in parent-teachers meeting, parents are complaining there should be a model question, there should be a model answer. What do you mean by model question in model answer? So if you think on it, that is it an education system where we have to say that this is the question, this is the answer, this is the question, this is the answer, and just student will remember that things and give the exam, after the exam they forgot everything. This is not the purpose for education. If you long back, since I am Bengali background, if you long back, if you think about the Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, I think most of you have learned about it, that Tagore. Because somehow our education is a colonial hangover, you can say that. The British created this education system to create what they want. They want a manpower who can work as a clerk. They never the manpower who can able to create something, because they never thought it. So in that time, that Tagore said that, if you remember, as I translated in English, what Tagore said that time, before he establishing the Vishwabharati, he said that we are carrying education. Education is not carrying us. That means we are saying, oh, you have to know sociology, you have to know history, you have to know geography, you have to know physics, you have to know Schrodinger equation, you have to know Maxwell equation. But what purpose? I do not know. What I am able to do after knowing all that equation, history, geography, physics, what I am able to do? That is not there. So that's why the Tagore created the Vishwabharati, where he started learning by doing. That's his expertise was in culture. So he started the dancing, he started the singing club, he started that art and culture, all those things he are learning by doing. The creativity is the important. Skill is important, not that what you have remembered. I cannot say a person is intelligent if you remember the capital name of the 100 country. That person is not at all an intelligent. I have intelligence definition is that given an unknown situation, am I able to solve that problem? If I am able to solve that problem, then I am an intelligent person. So whatever that education, you have a degree, BTech degree, BSc degree, MTech degree, PhD degree. If I am not able to solve the common problem, then degree doesn't carry any sense. So that's why people say that as a teacher, how do I develop the skill and attitude of the learner, not the knowledge? Next question is, how I continuously improve the curriculum? Today you said, okay, we have a curriculum revision committee. Every 5 years, the people will revise the curricula. Is it the correct way? Today, world is moving so fast that I cannot say the curriculum which is valid for next 6 months will be not valid for another 6 months. So we require a continuous improvement of the curricula. There is a lot of open resources available. Today, you can say that all learner is a global learner. They are not a local learner. The learning is available in their fingertip. Information is available. So I cannot, a student cannot rely on his teacher itself. He will rely on entire universe. Today, if you see, ask today any students that once they're stuck in a problem, they search in Google and find out the solution in the Google, and they do it. So it is not that what teacher said that is the requirement. So continuous improvement of the curricula is an essential requirement for the teachers. Then that pertinent question, which is the most important question today, how to ensure examination system to reinforce the teaching and learning. If I ask you, why we take exam? Any participant, what is the purpose for examination? Anybody?
To check the achievement of the students after teaching learning process.
Okay, so I check student fail. Then I check, I take an exam, student fail. Then what happens?
Then remedial teaching goes on.
Is it going to be? Is it done today? Should we practice it? How many of you had checked the answer script after providing the marks? After marking the answer script, have you checked the answer script again? Anybody?
During the process of revaluation, if they apply for revaluation.
A reevaluation, then you just checking whether there is any mark mistakes or not.
Rechecking is done.
Rechecking for
Revaluation
the
or
marks.
rechecking.
Rechecking for the marks. Rechecking for the marks only.
Rechecking for contents.
Content. So then what feedback as a teacher you take? I just
sometimes some valuer has done some mistake.
Okay. Then you increase the marks. So somebody.
No, sometimes it is hello. Pardon. Sometimes it is decrease also. And may
okay, fair enough.
Not increase all the time.
Okay. So in your opinion, that examination is only to provide marks to the system, to the student. Is it true or false?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now I just give you a system. Suppose you have you go to a doctor and doctor prescribe you, examine your blood sugar, and you take the go to the lab and examine your blood sugar, and your blood sugar come to the 480.
Oh.
Is it end?
Hello.
Is it end? Yes. Is it end? Then 480.
No.
Then what you have to do? You have to go to the doctor again, show the result, and take the corrective measure.
Yes.
So where is the corrective measure in our education system? A student fail. Then what corrective measure as a teacher I have taken? If your students fail, then as a teacher, what corrective measure I should take?
To be frank, practically no one is doing nothing. Just
yes.
that remedial and all that things, they are in existence before some decades. But right now, we don't have time, sir. No one has time.
Don't have time because
sir,
we are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Continue.
Yes, sir. You people from that IIT Kharagpur, it is a very prestigious institute. And the way we are from a local degree college, government-aided UGC undertaking or UGC recognized or affiliated university colleges, we have a lot of limitation. And now the NAC and IQSC and AQR submission, all these things, even clerical works is going on by the faculties of science and all that things, sir. And though we are unable to give proper time for our practical and theory paper. So how we can manage all these things? It's a very, it's a research topic, sir, for nowadays.
So nowadays, then how do you think that your teaching learning will be improved? You cannot. Because unless you take the feedback, how do your teaching learning will improve? It is a feedback system.
Yes, sir.
So I cannot improve the teaching learning system unless I take the feedback. So whatever the work I do, if I want to improve my teaching learning system, the assessment and evaluation is part of your curriculum. Assessment and evaluation is not detached from the curriculum development. Curriculum and assessment and evaluation would be part and together. Okay, now I ask another question. What is assessment and what is evaluation?
Assessment after the examination and evaluation means when we give them grades.
Yes, correct. So that means assessment is nothing but a procedure to collect evidence about learner competence. So assessment is a procedure to collect evidence about learner competence. So any form of exam, whether it is a class test, end semester, mid semester, whatever the exam, all are assessment. Then what is evaluation? Based on the collected evidence, when you quantify the learner competence, that is called evaluation. So providing marks is not evaluation. We have to matrix is required for evaluation, which is called evaluation matrix. For example, I just give you an example so that it will be very clear. Let's say I have a teacher course and I have a 5 course outcome. Okay. So when I assess the students for his competence, because I want to assess, I want to assess the students to certify the competence. So then my question paper should be based on the course outcome. I cannot say there will be a 30% marks on described knowledge so the students can pass. There is nothing called pass and fail. Whether a learner is competence or incompetent. So how do I define the competency level? Let's say I have a 5 outcome, okay, and I have assessed those 5 outcomes. That's why it is called criteria-based assessment. Criteria are the outcome of the course, okay. And once I assess, if a student is able to achieve 4 outcomes, then what should be his competence level? 4 by 5 into 100. If all outcomes are carry equal weightage. Now, as a teacher, what feedback I should take? Suppose I have a class of 100 students and I find out that 80% of the students are not achieve the outcome number 5. Then as a teacher, what feedback I can say? I can say that my teaching learning process is insufficient to develop the outcome 5, or the target, the outcome 5 which I have defined is not achievable. So that is called teaching learning reinforcement. As a teacher, from the assessment, I take the feedback that which are the common mistake done by the students. That means there is something loopholes in my teaching learning system where I am not able to clearly develop that skill, or either that skill which I targeted is not achievable. Both are possible. So that is called evaluate effectiveness of the instruction. Then all of you have know there is a 2 kind of assessment. One is called summative assessment, one is called formative assessment. Summative assessment is used for certify the competence of the students. And what is the formative assessment? Your class test, periodic exam, all are formative assessment. Somebody say how many class tests I should take? It cannot be defined by the institute. It will be defined by the subject. How many concepts you have teach? If I have a 10 concept, I should take 10 class tests. What is the purpose of the class test? Class test is not for providing marks. Most of the teachers, what they do, oh, tomorrow I will take a class test. Oh, this time I will design a question paper. Nobody will be able to get 15 out of 15. Then after the class test is over, teacher will come in the class. Oh, you got 0. Oh, you got 2. Oh, you got 3. Is the purpose for class test? Not at all. Purpose for class test to find out their misconception, and the job of the teacher to provide remedial lessons. So that is called formative assessment. So teacher has a lot of work rather than delivering information in the class. It is not that you just go to the class, deliver the lecture, finished. Not at all. Okay, I'm not going details on assessment and evaluation. That can be a one topic. Together can be a 2-hour topic. Okay. Next question is how to ensure lifelong learning. I cannot spoon feed the students. If I spoon feed the students, then that is not the actual education. Actual education is I have to develop their self-learning ability also. Again, I can give an example for Tagore. There is a called Tota Pakhi, that some kind of learned person came there they want to educate that bird. So they feed all kinds of things in it together, and one day the bird is dying. So education is not like that. That okay, you have to know that thing, you have to know this thing, or you have to remember this thing, you have to write an essay on this thing, so many things. Oh, you have to remember this paragraph. That is not education. Education is self-learning ability. Teacher will provide a hints. That means students should develop their own thinking ability. That is very much required. And the last question is how to teach a large class. What is the common problem in large classroom? Okay, I just asked one question. What is the best teacher-student ratio for best teaching? What is the teacher-student ratio for best teaching? Anybody?
35:1.
35:1.
Or 30:1. Or 15:1, sir.
Hello, sorry to say,
Yes.
sir, in online mode, there is no ratio.
No, best, let's I say define the best teaching. As per the educational or as per the learning theory, what is the teacher-student ratio for best teaching?
40:1.
12:1.
1:1. Yes, that is the correct answer. 1:30, 1:20, all are vague answer. You cannot justify. 1:1 you can justify. What is the justification? Because as per learning theory, what learning theory says, the best teaching happens when the instructor delivery matches with learner learning style and learning approaches. Every learner has its own learning style. I think in the workshop you will learn what kind of learning style and different kinds of learning style and learning approaches exist in that for the learning, human learning. So there's a learning style and learning approaches, and that is also not fixed for particular learner. That depends on the topic, that depends on the mood of the learner, that depends on the time, many factors there depend. So best teaching happens when the delivery of the instruction matches with learner learning style and learning approaches. That's why when I teach 1:1, that means every time teacher assess the learner learning style and approaches, and based on that he modify his delivery, and that's why the learning is happening. Now you can say, it is possible to make a learner 1:1 in a classroom? Physically, it is not possible. But theoretically, it is possible, which is called virtually it is possible. Can I use technology or pedagogy to make it 1:1? Virtually, not really. And that name is called personalized learning. So all of you have learned about the Bijoy said, we have a personalized learning. What is the meaning of personalized learning? Is the virtually making 1:1 teacher-student ratio. If I use educational technology, if I use pedagogy, correct pedagogy, is it possible to create virtually 1:1 teacher-student ratio in a large classroom? Whether it is online learning, whether it is offline learning, doesn't matter. If you have a large classroom, then virtually it is possible to create 1:1 teacher-student ratio. So this is the problem which exists today in 21st century education. Now, is there any solution? Anybody can give any solution of any one of those problems? Participant? Any one of those problems? No solution. At the end of the lecture, I will show you one solution where I can able to solve student engagement. I can able to solve skill development, continuous improvement also I am able to solve. Then examination, yes, I am not covering this lecture. Lifelong learning, I can able to solve, and large classroom, actually create 1:1 teacher-student ratio, also I can solve. So outcome-based curriculum design, what I will say the topic name, is one of the methods to solve this problem is called outcome-based education. And this outcome-based education is not only that, okay, I have what is outcome-based education, write your course outcome. It is not at all. Outcome-based education is a procedure or a teaching learning methodology, which is called learner-centric methodology, which can solve those problems in today's education system. So entire lecture will be on that only. And there is another dimension of education. How many of you are aware about accreditation? NAC accreditation, NBA accreditation, most of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I ask you what is the purpose for NAC accreditation? Why we require a NAC accreditation?
For governance.
For governance, why do you require? It is a document. Oh, you are NAC accredited.
It is mandatory, and it will increase the standard of education in all aspects, not only in academic education, but administrative level and all that levels also, governing levels also.
Quality enhancement, quality.
Quality enhancement. Can I measure it? Quality assurance, you are saying. Can I measure it?
That they have put some parameters, as you know, sir.
Yes, criteria wise, and
that I'm coming.
Seven criteria.
That I'm coming. So most of the cases we do not understand the objective of this NAC, NBA, or Washington Accord accreditation.
NIRF is also there.
NIRF also is there. There is a, so suppose, I think my video is visible, I think so. Suppose I want to measure the quality of this pen. How can I measure it? I want to measure the quality of this pen. How can I measure it?
First, we have to use it, sir.
You have to use it. No. Suppose you want to buy a pen from Amazon. What do you look for?
Review.
Review. What is the meaning? Meaning is that called subjective evaluation. So review is nothing but a subjective evaluation. So quality of a product can be measured in two ways. One is called subjective, another one is called objective. So what is subjective? Many people said that this pen is good. That's why this pen is good. That is subjective measurement. Many people said IIT graduates are good because the IIT established their brand name throughout the last 70 years by their alumni. That's why IIT BTechs are good. That is subjective evaluation. But if I really want to measure objectively the quality of this pen, what I have to do? I have to define different parameters. Length of the pen, how long it can write, what is the color of the pen, what is the grip of the pen. So lot of attributes I have to define in the pen to measure the quality of the pen in objective manner. So your NAC, NBA, or whatever, the attributes are only the dimension to measure the quality of an education system objectively. So I cannot say the NAC visited and we have how many chairs, how many, that is not part of the education system. Part of the education system, the measured dimension to find out the quality of the product. What is the product for your education program? The product is the outgoing students.
Yes, sir.
So there is a very simple thing. Suppose I said I am a BTech civil engineer. Why society will accept me as a BTech civil engineer? I should have certain skill which doesn't have by the common people. Why I go to the doctor? Because doctor has a certain skill, and that is different from the common people. That's why he is a doctor. So anyway, whether I am a BTech electronics engineer, civil engineer, or honors graduate, MSc graduate, English honors, everybody must have a certain skill which common people doesn't have. So those skills I have to measure whether the program are able to produce those skills or not. So there's a two question. What are the skill is essential for a particular program? And I have to measure whether the skill is developed by the program or not. So essential part is defined by accreditation body with the consultancy with the society. Society said that if a BTech civil engineer required this skill, that is the attribute created by the that you can say the accreditation body. And whether those skills are developed or not, that is called attainment calculation. So I can calculate the attainment of the skill from the outgoing student. So that's why you have said that we have a PO and attainment of PO. PO are called program outcome, that is nothing but an attribute, and we have an attainment of PO is nothing but whether those program outcome is developed under the students by the program of the on the students or not. Simple that. It is not that how many chair is there in the university, how many books are in the library. Those are secondary issues. Those are not the primary issue for an accreditation. Okay. So now, both the problem. The question is how I implement accreditation in the classroom. And if I want to implement the accreditation in the classroom, I require solution of those questions. So the question boiled down to one problem: how I implement accreditation in the classroom. That means I have to answer the questions which I raised in the slide. So one of the methods to implement accreditation in the classroom is called outcome. I'm not going accreditation in details. Outcome-based education. So what is outcome-based education? Many people say blended learning, flipped teaching, game-based learning, scientific augmented learning, all are learner-centric learning. If you see the problem, all the methodology, the problem is what to teach. In flipped teaching, what to flip? Game-based learning, which game? What is the content of the game? Project-based learning, what is the content of the project? So all the learner-centric approach, blended learning, all the jargon, all are there. But basic requirement is what to teach. That instead of what to teach, I can say what competence the students should develop. That's why it is called outcome-based learning. Outcome-based learning is nothing but an existing system, but here we said the outcome has to be achieved by the learner itself. So why we require an outcome, or what is the philosophy of outcome-based learning? Maybe it is, many people have already attended my course, so they know this kind of example. I try to, yesterday night, I thought I should create a new example, but this example is very good to explain that outcome-based learning. That's why I keep it in here. And how many of you know this philosophy of this picture? You know the philosophy of this picture, participant? All of you know this book, I think so. Many people have already gone through this book. So what is the philosophy of this picture? Anybody? I explain. So what is the philosophy? A girl standing on a junction of path. And he asked the cat which path he's supposed to take. Then cat replied, where do you want to go? Girl said, I do not know. Then cat said, take any path, doesn't matter. So that means unless you know your destination, how can you define the path? So unless you know your target, your path cannot be fixed. So what outcome-based education says that the job of the teacher is not to teach. Job of the teacher to define the target as per the requirement of the society. That means as per the requirement of the accreditation body. Teachers should define the target and guide and mentor the student to reach the target. So what outcome-based education says? That in outcome-based education, role of the teacher is not to teach. Role of the teacher is mentor and guide the student to achieve the goal and define the goal based on the accreditation requirement. Then you may say, no, why should teacher is required to define the goal? Anybody can define the goal from industry. Then why teacher is required for define the goal? Example is very simple. Suppose you have a infection in throat. Then everybody knows because of the Google that if I take this antibiotic, throat problem will go away. But again, you go to the doctors. Why? Because as a general public, I do not know what is the level of infection and how much dose of antibiotic is required to cure that level of infection. So that is the job of the doctor to specify. This is the specialty of the doctor. Similarly, today, if you see, if you search in the net, what is analog electronics, you get thousands of material on analog electronics. But how much analog electronics is essential for a BTech degree program, nobody knows. It is only known by the teachers who teaches in that program. So I said for this program, I require those skills only. So there is thousands of skill available in analog electronics. It can take entire life to learn. But I cannot spend entire life. So as a BTech electronics engineer, I may say that for 40-hour courses, those 5 skills are sufficient for a BTech electronics engineer. Similarly, English for communication. Can I say that within a 1 semester course, I will able to develop the communication skill of the students? Never. It is impossible. I cannot develop the communication skill within a stipulated 40-hour courses. I only can say, I will do up to this level. Later on, students will learn by themselves. So in my course, I'll enable the students up to this level, this skill. So that is the job of the teacher to define the outcome. So when you define your outcome of the course, the outcome of the course means at the end of the entire lecture, what major skill students will develop. It is skill. Never write student will appreciate the principle of this thing. Nobody is there for appreciation. Only that whether they will able to do this or not. So in outcome-based education, similarly, like that, I can give an example from our ancient culture also. That why, if you think about that, that there is a many students of Dronacharya, in even 100 plus, 5 plus, many students, his son also there. But why Arjun becomes successful? Because of practice. What is the role of the Dronacharya? Role of the Dronacharya is fix the target. This is your target to achieve it. Who will achieve? The students. So in an outcome-based education, it said the learning is learner responsibility, not teacher responsibility. But teacher will be there to guide and mentor and motivate the students to achieve the goal. So that's why I cannot say, oh, tomorrow I have a 1 hour lecture. After the lecture, I am not available. That is not role of the teacher. Role of the teacher after the lecture, the teacher should be available. It is not only the lecture hour. Student, the role, your student, you are a fan and philosopher of the students. So you cannot say, tomorrow I will be very busy, you cannot come to my room. I cannot say to the student. I have to guide the students, mentor the student, motivate the student. So that's why, in my opinion, the definition instead of teacher, I love the definition of guru. Why? If you see our ancient culture, there is a lot of gurus are there. I think most of the participant has a guru. But is any one of the guru told you that I will take you to the God? None of the gurus said that I'll take you to the God. Everybody said that I will show you the path to reach the God. So as a teacher, I cannot say I am teaching. I only can say this is your target. I am here to mentor and guide you to reach the target. Reaching the target.
Student responsibility to get that target, to achieve that target.
Yes, definitely. So that's why outcome-based education learning is learner responsibility. And that is learner-centered. And what outcome-based education solve? OBE, outcome-based education. Skill set means what the students will able to do. How, what, how, and how. So as a teacher is guide. How can we best help students to achieve it? How will you know what they have achieved? Evaluation. How do you close the loop? How the evaluation reinforce the teaching and learning? So now the question is, how do I define the outcome? What should be the outcome of a course? Or as a teacher, how do I write my course outcome? Or what should be the outcome-based curriculum? Is it the course outcome is sufficient? Not at all. Course outcome is not sufficient for outcome-based curriculum. So most of the cases, outcome-based curricula contain a structure, mission, vision, program, educational objective, PO, course outcome, and the course outcome, all the framework, then teaching learning process. And this is the more or less structure for a outcome-based education. So you have to know PEO, program educational outcome, program specific outcome, PSO or program outcome, and course outcome. And not only course outcome, course has to be divided in module, unit, entire curriculum has to be developed. I'm coming to that point later. So I think most of you know what is PEO, program educational outcome. Participant, I'm assuming you know that. Is it correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so PEO, program educational outcome, mission, vision statement. I have that, I think in YouTube link, if you search my name, those things are very statutory and it clearly explain those things. Mission, vision, program educational outcome, and then how to write that PEO, procedure for writing PEO, and how to consistency check between the PEO and mission, vision statement. And then POs are the graduate attributes. Now my job is to, from here, course outcome. What is course outcome? How many course outcome I should write? So what is the average length of a course? In a one semester course, it is 40 hours, 40 lectures hours generally said. The course consists of 40 lectures hours. And many cases, course may be theoretical course or course may be practical course. Now, I'm assuming that all of you know the domains of learning. So what are the domains of learning, participant? As per the
Cognitive,
cognitive,
psychomotor,
and
affective.
Affective domain. So what are the domain we are dealing with for general purpose education system? What are the domain we deal?
Cognitive
and psychomotor.
psychomotor.
Cognitive and psychomotor. So most of our lecture courses, theory courses or practical courses, whatever you can say, are in cognitive and psychomotor domain. Okay. Now, how many skill is required for a course? So, suppose I given a very good example for that. Suppose you are admitted in a driving school, and one of the driving school written down that at the end of the course, you will able to know how the power steering work, how the clutch work, what is the brake system, what is EBS system, all kinds of details they have given. And another training program company, they written down only 2 lines. At the end of the program, end of the training program, you will able to drive a lightweight vehicle or four-wheeler on a city road condition. Which one you prefer? Next one. So course outcome is nothing but the major takeaway by the students at the end of your course. Whatever the course you teach doesn't matter. You think about what is the major skill you are developed among the students. So why students will come to do your course? Because you said, no, the student has to do my course because they have to get a grade. Not at all. The students are doing your course to develop certain skill which they do not exist. So what are those skills? You have to, as a teacher, you have to write down those skills. So 4 to 6 skill, average 40-hour lecture. So major skill, let's say one of the skill required on an average 8 lecture. Then how many outcome will be there? 5. If on an average, let's say 10 lecture is required, then 4. If it is on an average 6 lecture is there, so there may be a 7. So 4 to 6, 7 outcome are sufficient for a 40-hour course. How do we write down that outcome? You have to write down the outcome in a specific, measurable, achievable manner. So now I just come to the another one. There's a very much confusion among the 2 terminology. One is called objective and instructional objective. Instructional objective are called outcome. Sometimes people say there is a confusion between course objective and course outcome. If your objective is nothing but an instructional objective, that are course outcome. We are interested about instructional objective only. So there is nothing called course objective. Course objective, if it is written using ISD principle, that is nothing but an outcome. But generally, there is 2 definition is available. One is called learning outcome or instructional objective. Another is called learning goal and objective. So learning goal is teacher-centric. But learning outcome is student-centric. We are not interested about learning goal. What you do, none of the students are bothered. They only bother what they have to do. That is called learning outcome. Okay? So all that objective means learning outcome. In my lecture, objective means learning outcome or instructional objective. Any instructional objective must be specific, measurable, and achievable. Specific, measurable, and achievable. I cannot say design an aeroplane is my course objective. I cannot say that. It is not achievable. So a learning objective should be specific, measurable, and achievable. I can give you some example of course outcome. Like that, a course outcome for room acoustics. I have written. You can see, read out the outcome. All the outcomes are specific, measurable, and achievable. Then there is another things. Every outcome has a 3 component. One is called performance component, condition component, criteria component. So what is performance component? What student able to do? student performance is performance component. Condition component, at what condition? Criteria component, up to what competence? So that means an outcome is what is given, what they have to perform, up to what level. That is the course outcome. So if you see that, given the specification of an acoustic room, determine this thing. Participant, what is action verb? Anybody?
Remembering, recall, tell, define, identify. These
No,
are
what is the
the
definition? I said, what is the definition of action verb?
action verbs, nothing but the learning outcome which defines about the concept, whatever you have taught. After that, we just take the help of those action verbs. It is also called elemental elements.
Can I say all English verbs is an action verb?
No.
Then which of the English verbs is action verb?
Know, understand, acquire.
So all are verb, but all verb is not said action verb. So action verb are those English verbs which are measurable. Understand cannot be an action verb because it is not measurable. So if the verbs is not measurable, then it is not an action verb. So all the English verbs which are measurable is called action verbs. And based on the action verbs, we can determine the cognitive level of the outcome, or I said the skill set level. Which level of the cognitive level has a 6th division: knowledge, understanding, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. So from knowledge means remembering facts and figure. Understanding means that is nothing but a comprehension level. That means I can comprehend the problem. Application means apply the whatever I have a knowledge in a new situation. See, analyze means I will be able to analyze a problem, or I can say that a problem can be divided in different parts. That is the analysis ability. Synthesis ability, I can put together different parts to make a whole problem. And then evaluation ability. That means I can justify whether this is correct or not, or I can optimize. So optimization, justification, all are in evaluation. Now, based on that, based on the action verbs, I can determine what is the cognitive level of an outcome. So if I say that what is the cognitive level of the first outcome? Anybody? Action verbs is determined. Anybody?
At remembering level, recall.
No. Determine is the action verb. Determine is nothing but an analysis level. Okay. Similarly, if you give the second one in the outcome, there is 2 action verbs. One is the list, another one is the design. List is knowledge level and design is synthesis level. So as per the Bloom's taxonomy, you know, if a student is able to achieve the higher cognitive level, it is assumed that the list is, they will able to list it. Means if I able to acquire the skill in synthesis level, I have acquired the skill on application level, analysis level, and remembering level, and comprehension level. And Bloom's taxonomy. So suppose I will able to design an AC machine, then I should able to define the stator. So that is the assumption that is taken. So every CO must be pointed to a particular cognitive level. So when you write down a course outcome, it must be contain an action verb, it must have a condition component, and it must have a criteria component. If I told you what is the condition component for the objective number 2, condition component. Given the specification of an auditorium, so the requirement, so that is the condition component. I have to list the acoustical requirement and design that auditorium. Simple. So many people have written down many outcomes like this way. The student will able to design the amateur. Okay, all are, I think, in engineering example. Then there is some example. So cognitive level you can analyze, determine is analysis level, design is in synthesis level. Like this incorrect cognitive level. Sometimes we say apply abstraction mechanism to identify something is an application level. It is not an application level. This apply is not application level. Apply Newton's second law of motion is not an application level. For a given force and mass, calculate the acceleration is an application level outcome. Not apply Newton's second law of motion is an application level. So many people have written like this. Apply basic concept of electronics cannot be an outcome. An outcome is not a single line statement. It is specific, measurable, and achievable. Many are there. Induction motor operate. I'm not going details on that. So many times we have written outcome like compute different parameter like. So if I use the English word different, like, such as, basic, all the words are non-specific word. So none of the outcomes should contain the English word different, like, such as, various, basic. Example I can give you. Suppose in a question paper I said that write the difference between A and B. And one student write one difference, another student write two difference, another student write 10 difference. Who will get the maximum marks? Participant? Who will get the maximum marks?
The more the good.
Why? If the first students came, sir, you have only said write the difference between A and B. You have never mentioned how many difference I have to write.
Yes, sir. It is exactly the question is wrong.
Question is wrong. So if the word different instead of different, I have to write 5 different. So I cannot write in outcome compute different parameter. You have to write down the compute parameter A, B, C, D. You cannot write down like surface potential. You have to set all the parameters. Say outcome is not a single line statement. Outcome may be a paragraph, but it should be specific, measurable, and achievable. Am I clear about the outcome? Participant? Anybody has any doubt on writing outcome?
No, sir.
Okay. Now I come to the outcome-based curriculum design framework part. Okay, I'll demonstrate from that software itself so that you can understand instead of PPT. How much time I have left? Another half an hour?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Till 7 o'clock, sir. we have time.
Or still 7 o'clock I have it time.
You can have some question session 10 minutes.
Okay, okay. So another 15 minutes, let's say I explain this, this outcome-based curriculum design part. So let's say this is a software which is developed for under the project, MHRD project, and which can be accessible from anywhere. This is the web-based software. So anybody can write down the www. All the participant, I think screen is visible. So you can write down the address www.id.iitkgp.ac.in. That is the web address of this software. Anybody can develop. So
sir, 1 minute. Can you just copy paste the URL to our message chats?
Okay. Yes, I can. Yes. I can easily do that. So www.ide.iitkgp.ac.in. Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So this is the website. You can go there and you can see this page will come. That suppose you want to develop your outcome-based curriculum for your institute. institute level. Suppose you are part of an institute and institute level curriculum you want to design. So you have to register for your institute. So you can register for your institute using a page, giving the institute name. Let's say I give a institute name like an FDP. FDP, let's say, what should I give the name? Anything? Let's say I give
curriculum based outcome.
FDP OBE, let's say. OBE, I said give the my institute. And then institute representative me, institute representative email ID, let's say I said sdas@gmail.com is my email ID. Okay, and then password. Okay, so password will be 6 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then institute mission, institute vision, and home address institute. Then submit. So your institute registered successfully. Your institute will be displayed in here. If I search here, Control F, FDP, OBE, no? So FDP, lot of program I have conducted, so there are a lot of things are there. So FDP, OBE, this is my institute. Why the institute registration is there? Because if every teacher registered at an institute, the same institute copied it several times. So instead of doing that, a institute representative can be nominated. He can register and he can add all the program. Let's say one of the program I am running is MBA. Let's say MBA. And I write down the program educational outcome and then give the password of institute registration time when I have given. So your program is registered. So now under the MBA program, I have a several course. Let's say I have a course on, let's say, acoustics. Okay. And principal developer is SDM. Principal developer email ID, let's say test.gmail.com. And I create my own course password because it is password protected so that nobody can see it during the development. Because during the development, I can say, no, I do not want to share it to anybody. Let's say I submit. Your course is registered successfully. So acoustics is registered. Now I go to click on acoustics and go to the course development page. Then I give the email ID here. So this is during the course registration, I have registration my email ID and then password. Login. Now I go to my course development page. So up to creation of the program is the job of the institute representative. Then once the program is created, the particular course will be registered by a particular faculty on particular respective program. Let's say I have a faculty of MBA department. I registered the course for acoustics. Okay. So institute vision, institute mission, program, educational outcome, all are already written down by the departmental level. Now here is my course outcome. The course. So what course consists of? Course consists of course overview. So if I ask you what is course overview, anybody? Participant, it should be interactive.
It is the gist of the course.
Gist of the course. What you have done in the first lecture of your course?
Orientation about the course.
Orientation means what? That what will be coverage of the course like this?
Yeah, preview of the course.
Preview of the course. Is it correct? Is it correct? Not at all. So how many of you have in Bengali background? Anybody is there in Bengali background? If you know the Bengali literature, there is a very interesting poem that written by Sukumar Ray, who is the father of Satyajit Ray. You know, all of you know maybe Satyajit Ray. The Sukumar Ray is written a poem, and the poem was very interesting. If you see, the poem was so relevant today that the poem, I just English translate the poem. That poem is on about an education system. What he said? A learned person ride on a boat. And he asked the boat driver, are you know how the sun is raised, how the moon is raised, how the tide is coming? So every time the boat driver said, no, sir, I do not know. Then the learned person, oh, you do not know anything. Your life is hell. Then suddenly there is a storm and boat supposed to sink. Then the boat diver asked to the learned person, sir, are you no swimming? Then learned person said, no. Then boat diver replied, sir, your life is hell now. That means I know physics, I know chemistry, I know Schrodinger equation, Maxwell equation, many things, but given a problem, I am not able to do it. That education is not required. That means course overview is nothing but a how can I motivate the students about the course. So in the first class, I have to sensitize them. Unless you develop this skill, your life will be hell. So write down one paragraph, how to motivate the students about the course, and one paragraph about the coverage of the course. This is course overview. Many interesting maths book you have seen written. In the top cover, it is written that don't read this book. That means math is not for reading. Maths is only for solving. So this is the requirement. Now, course objective. That means outcome of the course. So many teachers may not know the Bloom's taxonomy. Suppose I'm an engineering background teacher, I do not have a BA degree training, so I do not know the Bloom's taxonomy. So how do I get a help for the Bloom's taxonomy? Suppose I do not know anything about the Bloom's taxonomy, I write down the course outcome like this. Let's say this is my course outcome. I just copy it from here. Is it visible, participant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes,
now
sir, it is visible.
Okay, in this outcome, how many action verbs are there? How many English verbs are there? 2. List and design. Okay. So I do not know what is the cognitive level of the list. So I click all and go here. Press L. So I go level list. What is the cognitive level? Knowledge level. Okay. So it's the first cognitive level or lower cognitive level. Then next action verb is design. So I again go all and go to the top of the list and press D. Then deduce, define, design. What is the level? Synthesis. Which is the higher level? Synthesis. So my outcome is in synthesis level. Submit. Done. One outcome is done. Similarly, I write down the next outcome, next outcome, next outcome. So how many outcome? 4 to 6 for a course. But it should be measured takeaway by the students. And it should be what students will able to do. It is not the student will acquire knowledge about this. Not at all an outcome. This has to be learner-centric. That what students will able to perform. Okay. Then what is there? A course consists of several chapters. Let's say I say this chapter is module 1. Okay. And add. Module is added. So suppose I have a course. A course has a several chapters. So first chapter is module 1. Every module has a module overview. That means coverage of the module. Next one is module outcome. That means this is course outcome. Now here I came to module outcome. The procedure is same, but module outcome of the outcome which will be developed within that module. Okay, so module outcome I develop, write down again and submit. And then after the module outcome, what is that? Module unit. What is module unit? Is nothing but a lecture. So chapter 1 consists of, let's say, 5 lectures, and this is my lecture number 1. Maybe some name will be there in the lecture. Add the lecture. Every lecture must have a lecture summary. Okay, 2 to 3 page lecture summary, and then lecture summary, lecture outcome, and lecture level problem. Lecture level problem. So if you click in here, everywhere. Course level problem, module has module level problem, and lecture has lecture level problem. So assessment is integrated with the curriculum. So when you go to the course level problem, if you link with outcome, so this is my outcome of the course, and I said this problem is related to this outcome. So what I'm developing, I'm developing a structured document which is called outcome-based curricula. Not only the course outcome, but also lecture outcome, module outcome, lecture level problem, module level problem, chapter level problem, and lecture level problem. So all problem linked with outcome and overview and module learning strategy. That is nothing but a, let's say, I said one of the chapter is analog to digital conversion. Go to this book. Don't give the ready material to the students. Only give the link for the material. Then students will search the material and they will read it. Because if you give the ready material, you may be violate the copyright. IPR will be violated. But if you give the only link, then no IPR is violated. So you told them that, okay, this book, this edition, this chapter, this page to this page you read. So this way you develop the entire course. I'll give you some example courses in here. So when you go to the course view, here you can see some of the course which is already developed. Let's say I give the course view in here. Okay. So let the course is basic electrical engineering. Then I said this is the course outcome, this is the course level problem, this is the module 1, module outcome, module level problem, module learning strategy. So all are developed. And you give this one to the students before your course. Now I come into the question, the solution of how to improve the student engagement. So what is the basic question of the students? Sir, before I attend the class, I do not know what lecture tomorrow teacher will give. And once I attend the class, I find out teacher presenting a material which is available in the Google. Now I said, I give it to the material to you. You do not require to search in Google. I give you the material and I said them tomorrow I take the lecture on lecture number 1. Lecture summary is given, lecture outcome is given, and lecture test item is given. Be prepared. So they will read in the hostel and after preparation they will come in the class. Now in the class, instead of delivering the same information, what I can say? I can write down a problem which based on this concept, but which is very new, and ask them to solve it. You are saying flip teaching. So I'm practicing blended learning with flip teaching. I ask the student to solve the problem. I ask the peer student to describe the problem. So I am developing their communication skill. My class is much more interactive. And none of the student can say, I do not know what teacher will cover in the next day. It is given. So it is a student engagement is increased. Next question is skill development. What I said, you have to develop the course skill only. Course skill, unit skill. So all outcome are nothing but a skill. It is not that you should know how this is work. Not know. Know is not sufficient. You should be able to solve this. You should be able to design this. You should be able to do this. So I am developing their skill. Now continuous improvement of the curriculum. Suppose I am teaching a course on data structure and algorithm, and I write down this outcome, and which is available in our institute website. Now anybody sitting in the industry can add a comment that we feel this skill is obsolete today. Instead of this, you can teach this skill, and that will come to teacher. The students, your ex-students are sitting in an industry or sitting in somewhere. They can add problem related to your course outcome. They can add picture. They can add case study. So your course is continuously evolving. So continuous changing of your curriculum. All the courses are available. So all the courses are continuously modified. So your curriculum is every time up to date. Next question is examination system. I'm not going to there because that is a separate part of the examination system. Assessment and evaluation, separate lecture can be given for that part. Another question I raised, teaching a large class or in a multi-section class. First, I explained the multi-section class, then I teaching a large classroom. Suppose I have a subject which is offered for a multiple sections of students. What are the common problems students reported? Participant? Anybody is taking any multi-section class? Anybody? Okay, people are you active or participant?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So anybody taking
We all are
any?
here. Don't worry.
Are you taking any multi-section class?
No.
No. So what is the common problem in multi-section class is that most of the students comply that, sir, this section teacher is very good, our section teacher is very bad. This section teacher solve many problems, our section teacher doesn't solve any problem. So this is a common problem. So how do you solve it? Very simple. You design the course in this manner and give it to the all sections of the students. Now, none of the student can say, sir, my teacher is not covered the course because I have given the course material details to every student, not only outcome-wise, lecture-wise, module-wise. So everybody know what is their target. Whether they achieve the target through the class teacher or through the Google, through the Coursera, doesn't matter. But everybody should achieve this one. Now, suppose you have a 5 teacher in your course, and one of the teacher is very good in problem solving. One of the teacher is very good in motivating the students. So I can use those teacher in multiple section by rotation so that I can say that motivation is also done, problem solving also done, and course outcome is already given. So every student is happy. Now, teaching a large classroom. What is the problem in teaching a large classroom? What is the common problem in teaching a large classroom? The common problem is that if I teach for the first bench, the middle bench student will say the course is difficult. And last bench student will say the course is very difficult, do not do this. Oh, teacher is saying something. Oh, not bother about it. We'll do the Facebook, not the issue. Now, if I teach for the middle bench, then the first bench will say the course is very easy. So still last bench will say the course is difficult. But if you teach for the last bench, then the first bench and middle bench will say the course is useless. So I cannot dilute the course so that the students will understand, every student will understand. Requirement of the skill is fixed, and that fixed by the requirement of the NBA or accreditation body or requirement of the society. So I cannot say that I am a college which is a tier 3 college, so my students are not very good, so they will not know the skill, or their describe is sufficient. Not at all. You can only change the complexity of the problem, not cognitive level of the problem. So I give an example. So suppose you are in engineering college and you may say our students will only describe the AC machine. Not at all. Your student also have to design the AC machine, but the complexity of the AC machine may be less compared to tier 1 institution like the IIT or NIT. But I cannot say my students are coming from very poor background, they only describe AC machine. Then you are not producing a BTech engineer. Similarly, you cannot say our students only know who said this, why said this, when said this. Not at all. They should also interpret it. They also know that all cognitive levels of skill, but complexity may be less. So if you carefully read every PO has a 2 dimension. One is called cognitive level, another one is called complexity. Complexity may vary institute to institute, but cognitive level cannot change. So I cannot design a course which is appropriate for the last bench. That means that, okay, my last bench is very weak, so I will only cover the basic part. Not at all. So what you require, you design the course. Every student has to achieve the course outcome. Now you may say, given this course outcome, first bench is achieved it by 3 months. So next 3 months, I can give them the complex problem related to each of the outcome. I'm not changing the cognitive level of the problem, but I'm giving them the complex problem. Suppose I said, example I am saying, that suppose as per my curriculum, I require students should able to solve second order differential equation. Now the good students will achieve it within, let's say, 3 months. Then I told them that we try for the third order. So complexity I change. I have not changed that, okay, now my students are very poor, so they only describe how the differential equation is solved. Not that. Mediocre student will say, sir, I have achieved it end of the 4 month. You give them the slightly more complex problem. But last page, you have to ensure that they achieve it at the end of the semester. So somehow I am virtually created 1:1 teacher-student ratio. I am transferring the responsibility to the student side, not teacher side. I told them to learn it. I motivate them. Then most of the teachers said, sir, if you do that, nobody will come to my class because they are not able to come to my class. Some teachers said, no, last day I teach only for 20 students. Why this is happening? Because we are unable to motivate the students. If you see, for example, that let's suppose there is a lot of gurus are available in our society. Some guru has thousands of disciples. Some guru has only few disciples. Why? Because that guru are not able to motivate the others. The guru who can motivate the others, they have thousands of disciples. So my class will be full of students if I am able to motivate the students. How do you motivate the students is a skill for the teacher. That cannot be taught by a course. That cannot be taught by a training program. That is your inner things which will be developed by your own. But delivery of the class can be developed. There is another topic called scholarship teaching. If you read that scholarship teaching part, you can learn how to deliver in a class. But in outcome-based education, we are saying delivery is not that important. Important is the interaction among the students and development of their problem-solving ability. If you see NEP 2020, every pages they said they should able to solve kind of problem, creativity, solving problem. But how do we implement it? If the today's examination system exists, then I am guaranteed that OBE cannot be implemented. Most of the today, if you see, how do I get a maximum marks? Marks is not reflect learning. The reliability of your marks is 0 today. What is the reliability of your marks, of your competence? What is the definition of reliability, participant? When I say marks is reliable,
it talks about the
Consistency.
huh?
Consistency.
Consistency. How do I measure it? That means,
Sir,
suppose today,
acceptance by others.
acceptance by the others. Most
Yes.
of the company says that our education system produce graduates are useless. They are not employable. Why? Very simple reason. That today, if I take a test, a student score 80. If I take the same test after 1 month without notice to the students, can I guarantee the students will get the 80 marks? Can I guarantee it? Never.
Never.
Never. If it is not happen, then the reliability of your marks is 0. The definition of the reliability said that if a machine performance is same over the timeline, then we said machine is reliable. Your friend is reliable because your friend performance over the timeline is same. Then marks is not reliable. How do I make the marks reliable? Possible to increase the reliability. Then what is required? Suppose you say, okay, you learn bicycling, okay, and 2 to 3 months you are not bicycling. After 4 months, I give you a bicycle. Are you not able to bicycle it again? Okay or not? Suppose you have learned driving, you have developed the driving skill, and you are not driving for 4 months. After 4 months, I give you a car of a key of a car. Are you not able to drive the car? Answer is yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Why?
Muscle memory.
No, it is skill.
Because we have learned it, sir.
Not, it is skill.
Yes.
Not you learn, it is skill. So any skill you develop, you never forgot it. So if you see that, most of the question, if you say, write a short note on some topic, student will remember it before the exam. Either they will read in the last night and then come to the hall, write it, or they come with a piece of paper and write it. Both are same, because after the exam, both will remove from their memory. So if your question paper is like that, then your reliability of your marks will be 0. Unless you change your assessment and evaluation system, the OBE cannot be implemented. But before you talk about OBE, your curriculum must be designed as per the OBE principle. The list of topic is not a curriculum. Today we have a curriculum. Oh, you have to read this, you have to topic, list of topic. And what is the problem in the list of topic? The problem is it is teacher-centric. Why it is teacher-centric? Suppose I give an example from my background. Let's say I am teaching a course on signal burst. There is several chapters. I may be very competent on 2 to 3 chapters, but there is a chapter 5th, which I have a very shaky knowledge. What most of the teachers do? They spend most of the time on chapter 1, 2, 3 and want to lecture on chapter 5 and finish the course. Who is deprived? Students. But if it is available like this way, then may teacher do not have a skill on this chapter, but students can acquire it from NPTEL. Student can acquire it from Coursera. Student can acquire it from anywhere. So if a syllabus is list of topic, then that curriculum doesn't help you to develop the skill set to the students. Okay. So I think I'll stop here unless I'll not get the interaction time. Okay. So I stop sharing and the floor is open for interaction.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I think it was a very elaborative, illustrative way of explaining this topic. The floor is open for any doubt because this is one of the very basic and very core component of an outcome-based approach. So if you have any clarification, if you need any doubt to clarify with sir, please share it with him. So definitely he will able to solve it.
Yeah, sir, I would like to ask a question, sir.
Yes, continue.
Yeah, so yeah, very nice presentation. I really enjoyed and were aware of so many things which I was not aware of. So with reference to the course, you had told to prepare the course, you had given us a site also. I would like to ask, is it a group work? Is it a peer team which is involved in preparing the course, or can it be done individually? What are the technical things which we have to keep in mind while framing such courses?
Okay, so this if a course is taught by a single teacher, then individual can develop this course. If the same course is taught by the in your university, teach the course, then you distribute among yourself the which module you develop, which module other will develop, then collectively write down the course outcome. So in the software, both facilities available. You can register for one and you share your password, so anybody can open it and then can develop the course.
Sir, I would like to ask you one question.
Yes.
May I, sir? Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, in your slide, one instructional objectives and outcome, there is a written 3 important features of well-written instructional objective. It is
Yes.
written. So you have given explanation on this. Can you repeat, sir? Like A has the performance component, the condition component, the
And
criteria component.
Yes.
You explain the performance component. Can you please explain one more time?
Okay, thank you. So any outcome when you written or instructional objective, it must contain 3 components. Performance component means what student will perform.
All matches made.
Yes. Okay. What student will able to perform. Kindly mute your mic. Okay. So any instructional objective has a 3 component: performance component, condition component, criteria component. Performance component means what students will able to do. That performance determine the reverberation time is the performance. What will be given? The reverberation time, how they will calculate. Something will be given. So given the specification. So that means condition. Under what condition they have to perform it. Okay. And then criteria component. Criteria component many times not part of an outcome, but criteria component is essential when you are limiting the skill on a certain level. Let's say I give an example. The given and differential equation of 2 variables. When I say 2 variables, it's a criteria component. Student will able to solve that equation using method A, B, C, D. So when I say 2 variable is the criteria component. Given the 2 variable differential equation, so given that equation is the condition component, and solve using A, B, C method is the performance. So any outcome, condition component, what is given to the students, what they have to perform, up to what level. What is given to the student, condition component, what they have to perform is performance component, up to what level is the criteria. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, clear. Thank you so much, sir.
Anybody else? I will request all of you write down your course outcome, and if I'm available, if I get time, 1 or 2 course, because the best learning happen when we discuss 1 or 2 course outcome written by you. You written your course outcome and display it, then we discuss whether the outcome is correct or not. That way is the best learning to how to write the course outcome.
So it will be given to them as an assignment also.
Assignment. So yes, you do it, and if you have any confusion or any feedback you require, you can write a mail to me. If possible, I'll give you the feedback.
Anybody else has any question or a suggestion or an observation? Any comment you have to give?
Nobody. Then my request to all of you, whether you are teaching a art subject, science subject, engineering subject, school or where, please prepare your curriculum using this. Once you prepare your curriculum, it may be a one-time painful job, but then teaching become very easy for you. Because you do not have to think, tomorrow I have a class, I have to prepare the PPT. You do not require that situation. But once you prepare it, your question paper making also very simple. So I'm not giving you that how to make the question paper, those things I'm not covering in here. But that is also part of the curriculum. You cannot detach the assessment and evaluation from the curriculum. If you detach it, then it will be not in curriculum.
Sir, can I ask?
Yes.
Sir, now see, we have pedagogical subjects in our course.
Yes.
I mean, pedagogy of teaching in a different school subject. Now, when we were writing the course objectives like this, I mean, to develop understanding of various methodologies of teaching science as well as the different school subject. Now, when we are writing it as a learning outcome, so can we write like, you know, the student teachers uses different pedagogical methods, I mean, different instructional methods to cater to the diverse needs of the students?
No, it is a completely philosophical write-up. It is not an outcome.
Okay. It is not an outcome. Okay.
Outcome is that after the training program, all the teacher will be able to write down the instructional outcome of their given course.
Okay.
After the training program, whatever let's the pedagogical training program, the teacher will able to write their individual course outcome, the course which they have teach.
Okay. So according to the school subject, they will be able to write their instructional outcome.
That is the skill they will develop during the training program of your pedagogy training program.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? If it is not, then we'll stop here.
So is there anybody else with a question or any other question which comes to your mind? Sir, we will send it to sir. Sir, let them also, digest it. There is also a lot of things that happen. So what, and from the time we had contacted sir, we could feel the passion. Bijoy sir and I, when we contacted you, sir, from that time we knew the entire FDP is in the safe hands. And as the participants have also written about how energetic, how passionate it has been. So we thank you, sir, for coming and giving us such a wonderful, fully grounded, fully rooted kind of. Sir, what happens many a times we see the leaves and branches. What you gave us are the roots. The roots are very, very important, sir. And when we understand the roots, then I think we can draw our own branches. So thank you for giving us the roots, sir. And I'm sure all the participants would have clarified their doubts. And also the way you were also asking the questions that makes us think, where are we going wrong? So what was very important was we could identify our own errors also. And the software, which you the links which you have shown us, how we can easily do it for our students, how we can make them lifelong learners, how we can see to it. And what you said, no, the first slide you said, this is what I will do. At the end of it, I'm sure you have achieved your outcome for the FDP, sir. Thank you so much for being there. And I feel it is, I want more, and I want more from you. So hopefully maybe another FDP, another session, we will get back to you again and again, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, 1 minute. Participants, we have a quick video picture. Can some people switch on their videos? If you can, we can have one with Mandal, sir. You can... Sir, you are also situated in Kolkata. Where are you based?
Right now I'm in Kharagpur.
Kharagpur.